Chapter 34:14. Do you know the number one family in the southern continent? Pei Tianhong asked secretly. Nonsense, we haven't even been to the southern continent. How would we know about the number one family? Madman rolled his eyes at him. Pei Tianhong smiled and explained, the number one family in the southern continent is the He family, and the ancestor of the He family also has another identity, which is the temple master of the temple. He family? Temple master of the temple. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. The white-eyed wolf asked suspiciously, this kind of thing should be known by everyone in the southern continent. What kind of secret can it be? The ancestor of the He family is the temple master of the temple, and the ancestor of the Yun family is the deputy temple master of the temple. These things are indeed known by everyone, but no one knows the origin of these two families. Pei Tianhong transmitted. What origin? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. Pei Tianhong secretly said, this matter has to start from the beginning of the temple. So long ago? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Looking at the purple-clothed youth and the others, he transmitted his voice. Then let's leave the Demon land first. Find a place to sit down, and then you can slowly tell us. All right. Pei Tianhong nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at the purple-clothed youth and said, Brother, may I know your name? The purple-clothed youth was stunned and replied, Yun Zifeng. Yun Zifeng. Qin Feiyang murmured and smiled. Today's matter is indeed our fault, but we didn't do it on purpose. Please forgive us, Brother Yin. Yun Zifeng and Old Black looked at each other. This group of people didn't look like unreasonable people. Since the other party had taken the initiative to apologize, there was no need for them to not let it go. The most important thing was, this group of people exuded a mysterious aura, and they felt that they were not people to be trifled with. Since the misunderstanding had been resolved, it was better to have less trouble. It's fine. It's all a misunderstanding. Yun Zifeng waved his hand and said, but you can't just leave like this. You should at least take some responsibility. After all, it was because of you that they escaped. Responsibility is a must. However, we are not familiar with the southern continent. It will be difficult to find them. Qin Feiyang looked at Yun Zifeng awkwardly, then suddenly smiled and said, how about this? I'll compensate you for your losses. Compensation? Yun Zifeng was slightly taken aback and said speechlessly, I say, big brother, do I look like someone who lacks money? Ugh. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He forced a smile and said, as a descendant of the Yun family, I can get whatever I want. I really don't lack anything. I have offended you. Please forgive me. What do you mean you can get whatever you want? It's not as exaggerated as you say. Some things have to be fought for with your own efforts. Others won't give it to you. Yun Zifeng waved his hand and pondered for a moment before he said, I see that all of you are sensible people, so I won't make things difficult for you. After all, it's just as you said. We're not familiar with this place, so finding two people is no different from finding a needle in a haystack. Thank you for your understanding, brother. Qin Feiyang smiled. His impression of this person was not bad. Although he had a powerful family background, he did not show that kind of arrogant and overbearing attitude. However, I'm not such a magnanimous person. I'm not afraid of offending you. After such a thing happened, I really can't let it go just like that. Yun Zifeng said again. Understandable. I understand what you mean. I owe you for this matter. If there's a chance in the future, I'll definitely pay you back. Qin Feiyang smiled. You said it. I didn't force you. Yun Zifeng said. I said it. Qin Feiyang smiled. Okay. Yun Zifeng nodded. Then we'll meet again. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled, then nodded to Pei Tianhong. Pei Tianhong waved his hand and swept up the few people, then turned around and left at lightning speed. After watching Qin Feiyang and the others leave, Old Black shook his head and said, the more I look at this group, the more I feel that they're not simple. I think so too. Yoon Zifeng nodded, then frowned and said, "But those two young men look really familiar." "Do you want me to investigate?" Old Black asked. "There's no hurry. Let's find that pair first. Even if we have to turn the southern continent upside down, we have to find them." Yoon Zifeng clenched his fists. "Yes." Old Black nodded respectfully. Yoon Zifeng looked at Old Black, whose body had been destroyed, and blamed himself. "It's all my fault. Don't worry about it. Go back to your family and heal your body. It's okay. Even if I'm only left with my divine soul, I can still do it." Old Black hurriedly said, "Shut up. I told you to go back, so go back. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Yoon Zifeng said angrily. Even if Yoon Zifeng was angry, Blackie didn't have the slightest fear. He still wanted to argue for what was right. But when he saw the four large men giving him meaningful glances, he immediately sighed and respectfully said, "All right, I'll immediately return to recover." "That's right." Yoon Zifeng's expression eased a lot, and he said with a smile, "You know me, I'm not scolding you, I'm worried about you. You have elders and children to take care of. With your current state, if something happens, how can I explain it to your family? Thank you for your concern, young master." Old Black was touched. Pretentious. Yoon Zifeng rolled his eyes at Old Black and took out 4 yuan high divine pills. There were 8 dragon-shaped pill chi. The quality was better than Dan Wangcai's. "Here you go." Yoon Zifeng threw it to the 4 middle-aged men. "Thank you, young master." The 4 of them caught the pills, thanked him, and threw them into their mouths. "Let's go." Yoon Zifeng chuckled and led the 5 people flying outside. Back to Qin Feiyang's group. At this moment, they had already walked out of the Yin Demon Land. In front of them were endless mountains and rivers. The morning sun shone on the earth, making all living things grow. Towering ancient trees swayed in the wind, exuding exuberant vitality. "It's more comfortable to stay outside." The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Qin Feiyang and the others lowered their heads, and then turned to look at the Yin Demon Land. Although it had only been a few months, they had experienced too much. And they hadn't rested for a moment. They had been running and fighting, not to mention Pei Tianhong and Wang Chanyuan, who had been fighting. Even Qin Feiyang, Frenzy, White-Eyed Wolf, and Artifact Spirit felt a little tired. However, the gains were also great. First was Frenzy. Not only had his divine power evolved, he had the ability to transform, and he had also inherited the laws of space and time. Next was Qin Feiyang. He had inherited the laws of destruction, and it also contained the supreme, profound. Compared to these, what Qin Feiyang was most satisfied with was Pei Tianhong's change. After a few months of life and death, Pei Tianhong had completely integrated into this small team. For example, Wang Chanyuan. In the past, Pei Tianhong had a lot of complaints about Wang Chanyuan, because Wang Chanyuan betrayed him. Even though he had been working by Qin Feiyang's side, he still couldn't help but feel disgusted and hateful. But now, anyone with a discerning eye could see that Pei Tianhong's attitude towards Wang Chanyuan had obviously changed. Even if they weren't brothers, at least they could be called friends. Although we have gained a lot, there are also regrets. This regret is the fire dragon. I really don't understand. Why is this bastard so lucky every time? The white-eyed wolf was furious. Every time he was so close to killing the fire dragon, but at the crucial moment he could always escape. Could this be the old saying, a good person doesn't live long, but a disaster lasts for 1,000 years? Don't worry, we will meet again sooner or later anyway. I want to see if the heavens will always take care of him like this. Frenzy smiled coldly. Damn heavens! The white-eyed wolf raised his head and looked at the sky, his eyes full of contempt. Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf and smiled. Shouldn't your biggest regret be that you didn't get the laws of destruction from the golden, clothed youth? The white-eyed wolf was stunned for a moment before disdain appeared in his eyes. What? You changed your mind and don't want it? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Of course. You have already obtained the inheritance of the supreme laws of destruction. Why would I want to snatch his fifth law of destruction? A person must have a goal. No matter what, this big brother can't be worse than you. The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but reveal a trace of disdain in his eyes. Pei Tianhong coughed and smiled. Let's go to the Black Tortoise world first. I haven't seen everyone for so long. I miss you guys. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at Pei Tianhong. Did I say something wrong? Pei Tianhong was suspicious. You actually miss others? That's really strange. Frenzy chuckled. Little Frenzy, you don't understand. What others miss is the door of potential. The white-eyed wolf had a mocking expression. So that's how it is. Look at my brain, it's too slow. Sorry, don't laugh at me. Frenzy slapped his forehead and looked at everyone with his hands clasped, looking at the man and wolf singing the same tune. Pei Tianhong's expression was awkward. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He looked deeply at the Demon Land and then waved his hand. The group immediately appeared above the Devil Land. This is the Black Tortoise world. Looking at this unfamiliar world, Ghostblade was shocked. Spirit vein, crystal vein, herbs, this was simply a god treasury in front of them. We're finally home. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Frenzy and the white-eyed wolf also smiled. Wang Chuanyuan and Pei Tianhong looked at each other and scanned the Devil Land. Now that they were back in the Black Tortoise world, they actually felt a sense of belonging. This was where their home belonged. No matter what happened outside, no matter how much they experienced, when they returned here, their hearts felt more at ease. Hey, is no one coming to welcome us? The white-eyed wolf roared in dissatisfaction. So, not long after he finished speaking, 3 figures flew out from 3 different courtyards, flew into the sky, and landed in front of Qin Feiyang and the others. It was the Mermaid Princess, Zhua, Xiaoxian, and Fire Lotus. The 3 women's faces were filled with joy. You're the only one with a loud voice? The Mermaid Princess glared at the white-eyed wolf and walked in front of Qin Feiyang. Her eyes seemed to be a little wet. I'm sorry for making you worry for so long. Qin Feiyang held his lover's hand with an apologetic expression. No, I'm just happy to see you guys back. The Mermaid Princess shook her head. Zhua Xiaoxian didn't hold back and directly went into Frenzy's arms to seek comfort. So many people are watching. What are you doing? It's embarrassing. Frenzy glanced at Wang Chuanyuan and the others with an uncomfortable expression. So what if they're watching? It's not like I haven't seen it before. Zhua Xiaoxian's face was full of indifference. She hugged Frenzy's waist tightly with both hands, which made Frenzy feel helpless. Chapter 34:15. Qin Feiyang hugged the Mermaid Princess' waist and looked down. The ancient castle had returned to its original place, and the main body that was damaged in the battle had been repaired. After all, one day outside was 1,000 years in the Black Tortoise world. After a few months, there were already several 100,000 people in the Black Tortoise world. Where's the ruler weapon from the Demon Hall? Qin Feiyang asked. It's in my Qi Si. Fire Lotus smiled. Why did it go to your Qi Si? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Fire Lotus smiled. Because I'm Elder Hua's disciple, so it trusts me more. So it's like that. Qin Feiyang laughed involuntarily. It turned out that this sovereign divine weapon was worried that everyone would steal it away. Then he waved his hand and the horsetail whisk and Ghostblade's main bodies appeared. He smiled and said, You 2 also go to the land of origin and repair your main bodies. Okay. The artifact spirit chuckled and flew into the sky with the horsetail whisk, disappearing without a trace. Gue Ren yearned for the land of origin. He had risked his life with Qin Feiyang for so long just for this moment. Qin Feiyang turned to Pei Tianhong and smiled. Old Pei, you go to the ancient castle and find Dan Wankai. Thank you, young master. Pei Tianhong took a deep breath and flew toward the ancient castle with excitement and anticipation. Mermaid Princess crawled out of Qin Feiyang's embrace and looked at Pei Tianhong's back. She asked, Are you going to help him open the door of potential? Qin Feiyang nodded. Can we trust him? Mermaid Princess asked. Qin Feiyang paused and asked suspiciously, You don't know what happened in the land of Een demons. We don't know. Before you entered the land of Een demons, Big Sister Fire Lotus tried to contact you and couldn't see what was happening outside. Mermaid Princess shook her head. So you're saying that the laws and restrictions of the Eenma land are even scarier than the Nether King's hell? Qin Feiyang frowned. When they were in the Underworld King's hell, although they couldn't enter the Black Tortoise world, the people in the Black Tortoise world could see the situation outside. What exactly did you experience in the Een Devil land? Zhuo Shaoxian also came out from Madman's arms, curiously looking at Qin Feiyang and the others. Let's go to the tea garden first. Let's sit down and talk. Qin Feiyang smiled. In the tea garden, the tea trees swayed in the wind like young girls, full of vitality. Every tea leaf was sparkling and translucent like jade. Walking into this place was like walking into a sea of tea, making one feel happy. Qin Feiyang and the others sat around the table. The Mermaid Princess sat next to Qin Feiyang and made tea. The faint fragrance of the tea and the peaceful atmosphere made them relax, and their fatigue gradually dissipated. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Wang Changyuan, you say it. Okay. Wang Changyuan nodded and described what happened in the Een Devil land in detail. Qin Feiyang drank his tea with a calm expression. Madman and White-Eyed Wolf drank the Black Tortoise Divine Brew, and their expressions were also calm. After all, it was something they had experienced personally. Hearing it now, it wasn't surprising. However, the Mermaid Princess, Zhuo Shaoxian, and Fire Lotus couldn't help but tremble in fear. They didn't expect Qin Feiyang and the others to experience so many dangers in just a few months outside. No wonder Qin Feiyang helped Pei Tianhong open the door to potential. This was a test of life and death. He was absolutely trustworthy. So, we're facing the risk of being hunted down by the dragons again? Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang. Yes, their hunting plan has already begun. When we return to the eastern continent, fierce battles will be inevitable. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead. Couldn't they let him rest for a while? He had just finished off the Blood Hall, and now he had to face the dragons that were countless times stronger than the Blood Hall. Sigh, I didn't expect the Sky Cloud realm to have dragons. Mermaid Princess sighed. What are you afraid of? The dragons of the ancient realm can't beat us, and the dragons here can't beat us either. We'll be the victors in the end. Madman smiled proudly. Can you not be so arrogant? Can the dragons of the ancient realm compare to the dragons of the ancient realm? Zhuo Shaoxian glared at him with dissatisfaction. Although she hadn't been to the ancient realm, she had been in the Black Tortoise realm for so many years and knew about the dragons of the ancient realm. Is there a difference? Madman drank a mouthful of the Black Tortoise Divine Brew, and his face was full of disdain. Zhuo Shaoxian expressed her helplessness. Qin Feiyang glanced at Zhuo Shaoxian, and a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. This little girl's strength had improved by quite a bit. It seemed that she hadn't slacked off in the Black Tortoise realm for the past few months. Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Lotus and Mermaid Princess, and his expression was slightly stunned. He hadn't noticed before, but the aura of these two girls had already reached the half-step ruler realm. There's no hurry to deal with the dragons. Those princesses and princes want to end the battle quickly, but we won't let them have their way. We'll play with them slowly. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and smiled. That's easy to say. Do you have the ability to end the battle quickly with them? White-Eyed Wolf said with disdain. Can you not talk about it? Qin Feiyong's expression froze, and he glared fiercely at White-Eyed Wolf. Haven't you heard of the saying, life is hard, don't talk about it? Cough, cough. Qin Feiyong coughed dryly, looked at the three girls and said with a smile, let's not talk about the dragons for now. Let's talk about the three of you first. I haven't seen you for a few months, and your strength has increased. Of course. It's not just us. Apart from little Jie and the other kids, basically all of them have reached the half-step ruler realm. Mermaid Princess raised her head, revealing a rare bit of pride. Really? Don't make me happy, Qin Feiyong said. Why would I lie to you about this? Xia Yuan, big sister Rushuang, and even Mu Tianyang Dongjingyang, the demon ancestor, and Mu Qing have all reached the half-step ruler realm. The few of them might not even be half-step ruler realm. Mermaid Princess said. Not bad. Qin Feiyong was overjoyed. The overall strength of the Black Tortoise realm had increased by another level. Wait, you're saying that Mu Tianyang and the others might not even be half-step ruler realm? Qin Feiyong frowned. Yes. In any case, every time I see them, I can't see through their cultivation. Mermaid Princess nodded. What's the situation? Qin Feiyong pondered for a while, then asked, what kind of laws have they comprehended? I don't know. Mermaid Princess shook her head. Haven't you always been in the Black Tortoise realm? How can you not know? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Then I can't keep an eye on them every day, right? Besides, ever since they broke through to the peak imperishable realm, they've been training outside and comprehending laws. It's rare to see them return. Mermaid Princess said. All of them are quite carefree. Qin Feiyong pursed his lips. He was risking his life outside, but these guys were enjoying their lives in the Black Tortoise realm. No, he had to find a chance to drag them down with him. In his heart, Qin Feiyong began to calculate silently. Mu Tianyang, Dongjingyang, demon ancestor, and Mu Qing were all people with heaven-defying battle souls, and each of them had extraordinary talent. The most important thing was, they had opened the door of potential early on, and they were cultivating in the Black Tortoise realm every day. Their cultivation would definitely advance by leaps and bounds. Of course, to be honest, even Qin Feiyong and Madman's current strength was nothing in the Sky Cloud realm. After all, only by reaching the peak Dominator realm would they have the right to speak. But, in terms of brains and methods, Mu Tianyang and the others were all old foxes. After all, after fighting for so many years, Qin Feiyong was still clear about the details of these people. If he let them help, then he should have more confidence in dealing with the dragons. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyong looked at Wang Changyuan and smiled. Old Wang, I'll give you a mission. Please tell me. Wang Changyuan stood up and looked at Qin Feiyong respectfully. Go to the Central Continent and tell the secret guards about the dragon's situation. Tell them to work harder and be ready to fight at any time. Qin Feiyong said. Yes. Wang Changyuan nodded, turned around, and flew away like lightning. Qin Feiyong was silent for a while, then looked at Madman and White-Eyed Wolf and sighed. We have to tell Xia Yuan and the others about this, let them be mentally prepared, and also give them some pressure. Madman and White-Eyed Wolf both agreed. All right, Senior Brother Madman and I are going to comprehend the inheritance. White-Eyed Wolf, I'll leave this matter to you. Qin Feiyong smiled. Can you not mention the inheritance? The ingrate angrily glared at Qin Feiyong. Then he picked up the wine jug and left with a face full of displeasure. What's wrong with it? Mermaid Princess and the others looked at White-Eyed Wolf's back suspiciously. What else can it be? It's just unhappy that Senior Brother and I got the inheritance. Qin Feiyong was helpless. Is that so? The three shook their heads and laughed. Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Lotus and asked, "Have you finished organizing the resources in the Blood Hall?" "It's already been organized. I asked Pai Lupi and the others to take the Crystal Vein and Soul Vein to the East, South, North, and Central Continent. After all, the Devil's Land is only so big it's already full. There are also many divine weapons and divine arts. Except for the few supreme divine arts and divine weapons, I've distributed them to everyone. Now in our Devil's Land, whether it's humans or beasts, basically all of us have a legendary divine weapon, a legendary divine art, and a support divine art." Fire Lotus explained. "Very good." Qin Feiyang nodded. His previous wish was to equip everyone with a divine weapon and divine art. Now he finally did it. Although they were only at the legendary level, it didn't matter. This was because all heaven-defying divine artifacts could slowly grow. As for divine arts, they didn't have much meaning because battles in the sovereign realm basically used the profound laws. Of course, it wasn't that they were useless. If they really insisted on pursuing divine arts, 1 or 2 would be enough. They could slowly improve it in the future and fuse the power of the laws. As for the remaining low-level divine arts and divine weapons, I asked Pai Lupi and Theta Wong to send them to the divine treasures and the various forbidden areas. Consider it a blessing for the Black Tortoise world." Fire Lotus smiled. "When you do things, it's really reassuring." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Fire Lotus smiled and said, "However, I still have the supreme divine arts and divine weapons in my hands, waiting for you to deal with them." "How many do you have?" Qin Feiyang asked. "The 3rd chapter is a little late." Chapter 34:16. Fire Lotus said, 8 divine artifacts, 12 divine arts, and 4 of them are supreme, heaven-defying support divine arts. That's all there is in such a big blood hall? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. This also proves that supreme-level divine artifacts and divine techniques are indeed very rare. Fire Lotus nodded. That's all. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then looked at Fire Lotus and said, "Senior brother, White-Eyed Wolf, and I don't need these things. Let's just give them to Wang Ming and Yan Li." "Okay." Fire Lotus smiled. "Okay, I'll trouble you to take care of them. I'll go back and comprehend the law of destruction that I inherited." Qin Feiyang smiled at Fire Lotus, then pulled the mermaid princess home. "Can you be more honest with your hands?" Blushing, the mermaid princess said angrily, because Qin Feiyang's hands were very naughty. "We've been apart for a few months, and I miss you a lot. You have to help me relieve my lovesickness, right?" Qin Feiyang chuckled. "You're so naughty." Mermaid princess rolled her eyes at him. Pondering for a while, she said, "Feiyang, Sister Fire Lotus isn't young anymore." "Huh." Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He looked at the mermaid princess suspiciously. "Why are you suddenly talking about this? You're such a blockhead." Mermaid princess glared at Qin Feiyang angrily and said in a low voice, "Look at Sister Fire Lotus. She's been busy with you all these years and hasn't thought about her marriage." "Oh, you mean that?" Realization dawned on Qin Feiyang, and he chuckled. "You really can't blame me for this. I've thought about it, but after thinking about it, I realized that this girl is really too outstanding. I don't think anyone is worthy of her. We can't let her die alone, can we?" The mermaid princess said, "That definitely won't happen. Don't worry, I'll take this matter to heart. Besides, Fire Lotus is my sister, so I have to keep an eye on her. His strength and talent can be mediocre, but his character must be top-notch." Qin Feiyang smiled. "According to the standards in your heart, I don't think anyone in this world is qualified." The mermaid princess was speechless. "So it all depends on fate. We can't be too deliberate. Otherwise, Fire Lotus will think that we're going to force her to leave." Qin Feiyang smiled. "You have a lot of excuses." The mermaid princess was helpless. While they were talking, The two of them had already reached the courtyard. Qin Feiyang moved closer to the mermaid princess's ear and chuckled. Let's take our time with Fire Lotus. First, help me relieve the pain of lovesickness. After saying that, he carried the mermaid princess and ran towards the pavilion as if he was flying. Fuck, can't you be more reserved? On the other side, Lunatic followed Zhuo Xiaoxian back to the house. Seeing Qin Feiyang's behavior, he immediately rolled his eyes. Jealous. Zhuo Xiaoxian giggled. Jealous. Lunatic's face was full of disdain. He hugged Zhuo Xiaoxian and said proudly, It's not like I don't have one. Why should I be jealous of him? Zhuo Xiaoxian's cheeks were red. She lowered her head and twisted her fingers like a little girl, murmuring, Then should we what? Lunatic looked at her, suspiciously. That is, Zhuo Xiaoxian's cheeks were almost dripping with water. Say it, Lunatic urged. Zhuo Xiaoxian's face darkened. She said angrily, Why are you so stupid? Just like Qin Dage and sister-in-law, we're going to make a baby. She then realized that she was being too straightforward. She lowered her head in embarrassment. Make a baby? Lunatic was startled. He lifted Zhuo Xiaoxian and said with a cunning smile, So you want to make a baby with me, that much? Fine, I'll take you on the spot. We'll have a shotgun marriage in the future. Saying this, he rushed into the attic and slammed the door shut. As for whether he would take her on the spot, no one knew. Time passed quickly. 1,000 years later, a terrifying aura burst out from Lunatic's courtyard, startling many people. Following it, space-time storms appeared in the sky above, sweeping across the place. That looks like the rules of space-time. Long Tianyu, Wang Xiaojie, Qin Qin, and Zhuo Xiaoqing ran out of the courtyard and looked at Lunatic's courtyard with their mouths agape. Zhuo Xiaoqing didn't have much contact with others in the Black Tortoise world, but he spent every day with Wang Xiaojie and the other two. Their relationship was very good now, because in this demonic land, only Wang Xiaojie and the other two were a little younger. This is Martial Uncle Lunatic's aura. He actually comprehended the space-time laws again. This is too much. Not only did we not catch up with him, the gap between us is getting bigger and bigger. Wang Xiaojie said with jealousy. Catch up with him? Come on. Qin Qin rolled his eyes. Looking at the space-time storm in the sky, his eyes were full of admiration. Soon, the space-time storm dissipated, and Lunatic's aura soared to the greater success stage. Swoosh! After the aura dissipated, a space-time rift appeared in front of Long Tianyu and the other three. The four of them were surprised. Was this the space-time portal? In the next moment, a black-robed young man walked out of the space-time rift. Who else could it be but Lunatic? Uncle is mighty. Wang Xiaojie immediately went up to flatter him. I am mighty. Do I need you to say that? Lunatic rolled his eyes at him. Wang Xiaojie was stunned and immediately muttered in his heart. Shameless, he smiled and said, Uncle, when will you explain the mysteries of the space-time laws to us? Didn't Qin Batian and Chu Yun talk about it before? What were you all doing at that time? Didn't you listen carefully? Lunatic said, Yes. Wang Xiaojie quickly nodded and said, But this thing, after hearing it once or twice, I don't think it's very useful. That's because your talent isn't good enough and you can't understand it. I really don't understand. Why does old Qin like you as a disciple? Lunatic shook his head. Uncle, just say it. Can you not attack me personally? Wang Xiaojie looked at him bitterly. I'm too lazy to attack you. Lunatic smiled in disdain. Wang Xiaojie smiled and said, Uncle, don't be like this. Look, in our generation, Qin Chen, Long Tianyu, and I are all pretty good. Brother-in-law, and me, Zhuo Xiaoqing quickly raised his hand, afraid that he would be forgotten. The current him, compared to the past, not only was he much more mature, his cultivation had also improved greatly. The most important thing was that he was no longer as timid as before. Brother-in-law. Lunatic was stunned and looked at Zhuo Xiaocheng. The word brother-in-law sounded pretty good. Then he glanced at Wang Xiaojie and the other two and said indifferently, "All right, since I'm free now, I'll tell you guys." "Thank you, uncle." Wang Xiaojie chuckled. "An uncle is an uncle. Old uncle? Am I that old?" Lunatic glared at him, then glanced at Qin Feiyang's courtyard and asked, "Your master hasn't come out of seclusion yet." "Not yet." Wang Xiaojie shook his head. Madman frowned. Could it be that the inheritance of a supreme profound meaning needed even more time? In the blink of an eye, another 2,000 years passed. Boom! On this day, another terrifying aura erupted. However, it was different from the space-time law. This aura contained a destructive power that could destroy the world. Lunatic was the first to run out of his room. Looking at Qin Feiyang's courtyard, his eyes were filled with envy. He could tell the strength of this destruction energy at once. It was much stronger than the destruction energy he had comprehended when he comprehended the fifth profound. Clearly, Qin Feiyang had already grasped the supreme profound of the law of destruction. The white-eyed wolf also ran over. Looking at the destructive power surging in the sky, he roared, "Little Qin Zi, Big Brother wants to fight you one-on-one." "Sure, I would also like to see how powerful a person who has mastered 3 profound truths is." As his voice fell, Qin Feiyang stepped into the air above the courtyard. Like Lunatic, his aura instantly soared to the greater mastery level. He broke through. The white-eyed wolf's expression stiffened. He quickly waved his paw and laughed. "Forget it, there's no need to fight between brothers." What a joke. He had already broken through to the greater mastery level. How could he fight? If Qin Feiyang was still at the lesser mastery level, he was confident that even if Qin Feiyang had grasped the supreme profound of the law of destruction, he would still be able to suppress Qin Feiyang. After all, as Qin Feiyang had said, he had grasped the 3 supreme profound. But now, Qin Feiyang had broken through, while the white-eyed wolf was still at the lesser mastery level, with a difference of 1 minor realm. Even if he had the 3 supreme profound, he still wouldn't be able to fight against Qin Feiyang. This was because Qin Feiyang had also grasped the supreme profound of the supreme law. Although the number was a bit lower, his cultivation could suppress the white-eyed wolf. "You think I won't fight just because you said so?" The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted. After this wolf cub had obtained the supreme profound of the 3 supreme laws, it had been extremely arrogant. It was time to let it have a taste of being beaten. Boom! But just as Qin Feiyang was about to make a move, a terrifying aura suddenly burst out and rolled over from the distance. Qin Feiyang, Madman, and the white-eyed wolf were startled. They hurriedly raised their heads and looked over, their eyes filled with surprise. Madman landed beside Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf and said with a frown, "This aura doesn't seem to be from the Devil's Land." "Definitely not." Qin Feiyang shook his head. The 2 men and 1 wolf carefully analyzed for a while and exclaimed in unison, "Middle ground!" How could such a terrifying aura erupt from middle ground? "Let's go and take a look," the white-eyed wolf urged. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and brought the man and wolf to the sky above middle ground. Immediately, they saw a shocking scene. The entire sky above middle ground had turned into a sea of fire. The scorching heat shrouded the world, and the entire place was like a huge furnace. "Greetings, young master." Accompanied by the sound of breaking through the air, the 9 commanders rushed in front of Qin Feiyang and bowed respectfully. They were the 9 deacons in the past. Qin Feiyang nodded and lowered his head to look down. He saw that there were several thousand people standing in the mountains and rivers below. It was the 6,000 shadow guards, Pei Dason, and the others. The 6,000 shadow guards and Pei Dason looked at Qin Feiyang with awe in their eyes, especially Pei Dason and the others. Since coming to the Black Tortoise world, This was the first time Qin Feiyang descended to middle ground. The previous encounter in the soul-sealing valley was still vivid in their minds. So when they saw Qin Feiyang again, they instinctively felt fear. Chapter 34:17. Glancing at everyone. Qin Feiyang raised his head to look at the sky. Waves of fire were rolling, covering the sky and earth. Not only the sky, but even the sky and the ground were dyed red. This is the power of law. Madman frowned and glanced at the sea of fire. Suddenly, his pupils shrank as he saw a figure in the middle of the sea of fire. It was Wang Changyuan. So that's how it is. Madman revealed a look of understanding, and a smile appeared on his face. Obviously, Wang Changyuan comprehended the supreme mystery of fire law. Madman glanced at the 9 commanders and joked, "Are you envious?" The 9 commanders looked at Wang Changyuan and couldn't help but nod. Of course, they were envious. In the past, although Wang Changyuan was the confidant of the Blood Hall Master, in terms of power and status, he wasn't as good as them. However, after following Wang Changyuan had not only become their immediate superior, but he had also comprehended the law of fire's supreme profundity. Adding the law of lightning's supreme profundity, Wang Changyuan now possessed 2 great supreme profundities. Although they weren't the strongest laws, these 2 supreme mysteries were already powerful enough in the sky cloud realm. And this was the benefit of opening all the gates of potential. If Wang Changyuan hadn't opened all the gates of potential, how could he comprehend the supreme mystery of fire law so quickly? They were more and more eager to open the gates of potential. A moment later, the sea of fire gradually dissipated, revealing Wang Changyuan's figure. When he saw Qin Feiyang coming, he immediately flew in front of Qin Feiyang and bowed. "Greetings, young master." "Congratulations." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "It's all thanks to you, young master." Wang Changyuan quickly waved his hand. "Don't say that. If your talent isn't good or you don't work hard, even if I help you open all the gates of potential, it's useless." Qin Feiyang smiled. Wang Changyuan scratched his head, looking charmingly naive. "However, you can't be arrogant and complacent. You have to continue to work hard. It's best if you can comprehend an ultimate law. This way, you will truly have the capital to fight against the dragons." Qin Feiyang reminded. "I will." Wang Changyuan nodded solemnly. From these words, it was not difficult to see that the young lord had high expectations of him, so he must not disappoint the young lord. Qin Feiyang smiled and glanced at the crowd below. He asked, "Where's old Pei?" "I don't know." "Isn't he activating the gate of potential in the castle?" Wang Changyuan shook his head. "It's been 3,000 years. He should have opened it long ago." Qin Feiyang said. "Then he didn't look for you?" Wang Changyuan asked. "No." Qin Feiyang shook his head and was about to release his perception to search for Pei Tianhong. Boom! But at this moment, another terrifying aura suddenly rolled over from afar. Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf were all shocked. This was the aura of the slaughter law. They all grasped the law of slaughter, so they were naturally quite familiar with the aura of the law of slaughter. Madman said, "It seems to be from the western region. Is it old Pei's aura? Let's go and take a look." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and prepared to bring the madman and Wang Changyuan to the western region. "Young lord, bring us along too," the 9 commanders hurriedly said. Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked at the 9 commanders with deep meaning. Then he brought the 9 of them and instantly descended in the sky above the western region. Below, the blood sea surged, and a thick smell of blood assaulted their nostrils. Although all the blood had been consumed last time, after hundreds of thousands of years of accumulation in the Black Tortoise world, there was still a lot of blood left. At this moment, the entire blood sea was filled with a monstrous killing intent. An old man in blood clothes was sitting cross-legged in the sky with his eyes closed. His blood-red hair fluttered in the wind. From afar, he looked like a killing god that had returned. It's indeed old Pei, the strength of the law of slaughter. Could it be that he has also comprehended the profound meaning? The madman was surprised. This strength means he has comprehended the profound meaning. Wang Changyuan was shocked. He originally thought that if he was given some time, he might have a chance to surpass Pei Tianhong. But he never imagined that after Pei Tianhong opened the door of potential, he would be able to comprehend the profound meaning of the law of slaughter so quickly. As expected, he was once the overlord of the Western region. His reputation was not undeserved. Regardless of whether it was before or after unlocking the door of potential, the gap between him and Pei Tianhong had never changed. Looking at this scene, the 9 commanders were even more envious and eager. Wang Changyuan was able to comprehend the profound meaning of the law of fire because he had opened the door of potential. Pei Tianhong was also able to comprehend the profound meaning of the law of slaughter because he had opened the door of potential. The door of potential was equivalent to breaking out of the cocoon and becoming a butterfly. Whether it was talent or potential, it would receive a huge increase. Young lord, give us a chance to perform. Suddenly, the 9 of them looked at each other and knelt in the air, looking at Qin Feiyong with begging eyes. Qin Feiyong was stunned. We also want to open the door of potential, but we stay in Zhongzhou every day and have no chance to perform. The second commander lowered his head and looked aggrieved. Qin Feiyong was stunned. Young lord, as long as you help us open the door of potential, we are willing to do anything. The third commander also said, That's right. Even if you ask us to die, we won't frown. The fourth commander and the others also spoke. Is that so? Qin Feiyong asked with a smile. I'm not lying. The 9 commanders nodded with determination in their eyes. All right then, all of you can go to hell, Qin Feiyong said. What? When the 9 commanders heard this, their expressions suddenly froze. Was he really asking them to die? This wasn't good. Their deaths were too worthless. I don't dare. Qin Feiyong laughed. The second commander felt aggrieved. Death is lighter than a goose feather and heavier than a mountain. Young lord, you can't let us die in vain. Ha! Qin Feiyong couldn't help but laugh, shook his head and said, You should have misunderstood the word performance. Misunderstood? The 9 of them looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. The performance I'm talking about is not deliberately showing off. If it's too deliberate, it will seem unreal and insincere. In fact, performance doesn't mean following me and blocking knives and arrows for me. It starts from every small thing. For example, you help others to solve their difficulties, teach others to cultivate and nurture the younger generation. These can all be behaviors of performance. In short, performance is a kind of attitude. You have to really integrate into this big family. Don't be selfish and accept everything with the broadest mind. Understand? Qin Feiyong asked. The 9 of them pondered for a while and nodded. Understood. Do you really understand? Qin Feiyong was a little amused. Yes. The 9 of them nodded again. He had made it so clear. If they still didn't understand, wouldn't they have lived their lives in vain? It was just that in the past, they didn't understand Qin Feiyong's thoughts. They thought that Qin Feiyong was the same as others who liked to look at the surface. It was only now that they understood that Qin Feiyong didn't look at a person's surface, but inside. All right, in the future, I will leave Zhongzhou to you guys to manage. I don't care about anything else. I only have one request. Don't break the harmonious atmosphere of the Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyong said. Yes. The 9 of them nodded respectfully. Swish. At this moment, the murderous aura dissipated. Pei Tianhong took a step and landed beside Qin Feiyong. The joy in his heart was suppressed, but it could still be seen. Didn't I ask you to follow me at all times? Qin Feiyang said. When I opened the door of potential, I wanted to look for you. But seeing that you were in seclusion, I didn't disturb you. Pei Tianhong explained. I see. I thought that after you opened the door of potential, you turned hostile. Qin Feiyang laughed. I wouldn't dare. Pei Tianhong quickly waved his hand. It's just a joke. Don't take it seriously. Since you and Old Wang have broken through, Senior Brother Frenzied and I have grasped the inheritance. Then let's go out for a walk. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yes. Pei Tianhong nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at the 9 commanders and smiled. Remember my words. With that, he waved his hand and sent a group of people to Zhongzhou. By the way, little Pei, what is the relationship between the Yun family and He family that you mentioned? White-Eyed Wolf looked at Pei Tianhong suspiciously. The relationship between these 2 families is very deep. Do you know the origin of Deity's Templar? Pei Tianhong asked. Nonsense. If we know, why would we ask you? Frenzied rolled his eyes at him. Pei Tianhong smiled and said, Deity's Templar was created by the ancestors of the Yun family and He family. And Qin Feiyang, Frenzied, and White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other. So Deity's Templar was created by these 2 families. In other words, these 2 families were the owners of Deity's Templar. It is said that the ancestors of the Yun family and He family grew up together. Although they weren't blood brothers, they were closer than blood brothers, just like you guys now. Pei Tianhong looked at Qin Feiyang and Frenzied and smiled. That's quite good. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yes, in a person's life there are many bad friends, but how many close friends can there be? Pei Tianhong couldn't help but sigh, because he thought of his life as the Blood Hall's Hall Master. He had a high position and knew countless people. But when he was in danger, who would come to help him? Just like Wang Changyuan. Wang Changyuan treated him well back then, but he still betrayed him. Don't sigh, hurry up and say it. Frenzied urged. He felt that the situation between the Yun family and He family wasn't so simple. Pei Tianhong collected his thoughts and said, back then the ancestors of these 2 families created Deity's Templar. After unremitting efforts, they finally overthrew all the forces in the southern continent and unified the southern continent, becoming the overlord of this place. However, speaking up to here, Pei Tianhong couldn't help but sneer and say, humans are ultimately controlled by emotions and desires. After unifying the southern continent, the ambitions of the ancestors of these 2 families became even greater. They both wanted to control the southern continent. So they had internal strife? Frenzied asked. That's right. Because of ambition and desire, the 2 of them agreed to fight in the Milky Way. It's said that the battle lasted for half a month. In the end, both of them perished. Pei Tianhong shook his head. Chapter 34:18. What? Both died? The White-Eyed Wolf paused and asked suspiciously, Didn't you say that the Yun family's old ancestor is the deputy temple master, and the He family's old ancestor is the temple master? You've misunderstood. Pei Tianhong shook his head and smiled. The old ancestor is the old ancestor, and the primogenitor is the primogenitor. The 2 are different. Isn't the old ancestor a primogenitor? The White-Eyed Wolf looked at Madman and Qin Feiyang. Talking to you makes me feel like my intelligence is lowered. How can the old ancestor be a primogenitor? No matter where it is, the primogenitor refers to the first generation. But the old ancestor can be called an old ancestor if they have a bit of seniority, age, and strength. Madman was helpless. I see. The White-Eyed Wolf nodded in realization. That's right. The Yun family's old ancestor and the He family's old ancestor are both descendants of the 2 primogenitors. Pei Tianhong said. The White-Eyed Wolf had an awkward expression. I don't know much about the relationship between you humans. Please don't laugh at me. Pei Tianhong shook his head and laughed. Because of that battle, the two primogenitors both died, and the Yun and He families formed an irreconcilable enmity. Don't think that they are harmonious on the surface, but in reality, the two families are constantly scheming against each other. Interesting. Qin Feiyang chuckled and asked, "Are there many people who know about this?" Definitely not many, because the two primogenitors didn't announce their battle. I only heard about it later, Pei Tianhong said. So even though the temple seems harmonious now, there are undercurrents surging? Qin Feiyang asked. That's right. Both the Yun and He families want to eliminate each other, unify the temple, and dominate the southern continent. However, the He family has developed better in recent years. That's because monstrous geniuses are constantly being born in their clan. Now, almost 2/3 of the people in this temple are from the He clan. Some of them are from the He clan, and some of them are outsiders that the He clan has recruited. These people who don't share the same surname were all groomed by the He family. They are all geniuses that are 1 in a million. In the beginning, the Yun family and the He family were equal in strength. But now, the He family has basically suppressed the Yun family. This is also the reason why the Yun family became the second most powerful family. Pei Tianhong said, "That He clan's ancestor is indeed quite capable." Qin Feiyang smiled. That's for sure. Otherwise, how can he suppress the Yun family's old ancestor and sit firmly on the seat of the temple master? However, the Yun family will definitely not sit still and wait for death. I heard that they've been secretly developing their forces for a long time. Furthermore, I've heard that a demon-level genius was born in this generation of the Yun family. Pei Tianhong said. Monster? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes, I've heard that he comprehended an ultimate law. However, the Yun family has protected this person very well. They didn't disclose what ultimate law he comprehended to the public at all. They didn't even tell the public who his parents are, what his name is, or what he looks like. It's not just the He family. Even our Blood Hall, Demonic Hall, and Rogue Cultivator Alliance have investigated in the past. We couldn't help but suspect that the Yun family might have fabricated this out of thin air. Actually, there's no such thing at all, Pei Tianhong said. Ultimate law. The Yun family, Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and shook his head. With the Yun family status, they shouldn't lie to the outside world. We thought so too. However, we've basically investigated the more outstanding geniuses of the Yun family, but none of them possess the space-time law. Pei Tianhong said, Then, is it possible that this person is hiding among those less outstanding geniuses? Qin Feiyang asked. Of course, this is also possible. Moreover, if this is the case, then this monster of the Yun family, whether it's his temperament or other aspects, can't be underestimated. After all, to be able to hide for so many years without leaving any traces, it's not something an ordinary young person can do. Pei Tianhong said. Yes, Qin Feiyang nodded. He was also quite curious about this monster of the Yun family. I'm a little puzzled. Suddenly, the white-eyed wolf spoke, its brows tightly knitted together. What? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at it. The white-eyed wolf said, Isn't it just comprehending an ultimate law? What's so rare about it that they have to protect it so carefully? Ah, Pei Tianhong was stunned. Wang Changyuan was also extremely speechless. He shook his head and said, It's really as the saying goes, if you're not in charge, you don't know the cost of daily necessities. What does this have to do with daily necessities? The white-eyed wolf rolled its eyes. Isn't this the same logic? You confuse laws, and now you've mastered the 3 ultimate laws. You do have the qualifications to say that ultimate laws aren't rare. But you have to think about it. Not everyone has a talent like yours. Let's take the simplest example. Let's talk about the young master and frenzy. Their talents are okay, right? Wang Changyuan looked at the white-eyed wolf and asked, "Isn't this nonsense? Who doesn't know what's in front of them?" The white-eyed wolf rolled its eyes at Wang Changyuan. "Yes, their talents are obvious to all. But look, until now, how many ultimate laws have they comprehended?" Wang Changyuan smiled slightly. The white-eyed wolf was taken aback. Looking at Qin Feiyang in frenzy, it couldn't help but fall silent. The young master has comprehended the cause and effect law until now. Frenzy hasn't comprehended a single ultimate law until now because his death law and space-time law are all inherited. When Wang Changyuan said this, he felt Frenzy's unfriendly gaze and hurriedly smiled. "Don't misunderstand. It's not that I'm looking down on you. You were lucky to be able to obtain the inheritance. Others say that luck is also a part of strength, right?" Frenzy was speechless and waved his hand. "I'm not that stingy." Wang Changyuan smiled awkwardly and looked at the white-eyed wolf. "I won't go into the details. You should also understand that those who can comprehend an ultimate law by themselves aren't bad." "All right." The white-eyed wolf nodded. "In fact, people like Yi Tian and that monster from the Yun family aren't any worse than the young master and Frenzy. The difference is that they haven't opened the door of potential, and they aren't like the young master and Frenzy, who relied on themselves since young and experienced countless tempering. Their mentality and character are better than those flowers that grew up in a greenhouse." Pei Tianhong smiled faintly. Wang Changyuan continued Pei Tianhong's words. "That's why talent is actually secondary. You still have to rely on your own hard work. Don't make it sound so nice. Who would want to work hard if they have a background? Old Qin and I have no choice. Isn't there a famous saying in the mortal world? Children from poor families can take care of their families early." Frenzy shook his head. "Not everyone is like that. I personally feel that even if you and the young master are given a strong family background, you will still work harder than other people of the same age. Because character decides everything." Wang Changyuan smiled. "You're bullshitting. Do you know old Qin's previous identity? He's the son of an emperor. Although the great Qin Empire can't be compared to a small family in the sky cloud domain, it's still a giant that unified the entire continent. In fact, he's also a hedonistic son. That's why he was forced out." Frenzy shook his head. Hey, what are you talking about? Who's the hedonistic son? When I was young, I was quite hard-working. What 4 books and 5 classics, astronomy, geography, zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, which one haven't I learned? Don't slander me. If we're talking about hedonistic, then it should be you. Do you still need me to tell you all the things you've done in Nine Heavens Palace? Qin Feiyang wasn't happy. Cough, cough. Frenzy coughed dryly and laughed dryly. "Let's not expose each other's background." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and looked at Pei Tianhong. "Since the Yun family and the He family have a grudge, then we shouldn't try to rope in the Yun family. After all, we'll offend the He family. That's for sure. There's gain and loss. However, in the long run, if we help the Yun family destroy the He family and take over the temple and the southern continent, then forming an alliance with the Yun family is equivalent to forming an alliance with the entire southern continent. The eastern continent's demonic palace and the western continent's rogue cultivator alliance are already our allies. If we add the southern continent, think about it, at that time, half of the sky cloud boundary will be in our hands. Then we'll have a greater chance of fighting against the dragons." Pei Tianhong smiled. "Old man, you're really dishonest. Not only do you want to drag the temple down, but you also want to drag the demonic palace and the rogue cultivator alliance down." The white-eyed wolf looked at him with disdain. Cough, cough. Pei Tianhong's face darkened and said angrily, "Isn't this all for the young master? It's a thankless task. Don't take it seriously." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. After muttering to himself for a while, he shook his head and said, "However, that ingrate truly understands me. The dragon race is coming for me. Furthermore, the strength of the dragon race is already beyond imagination. I will not implicate others." But Pei Tianhong frowned. "I know what you mean. The dragons are too strong. Our strength isn't enough. However, I believe that sooner or later we'll surpass them. As for the demonic palace, the rogue cultivator alliance, and the temple, if we let them join in, I'll feel guilty when the dragons take revenge. I don't want to owe others too much. However, we can get to know the Yun family. After all, one more friend means one more path." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Also, we have to figure out who is worthy of us befriending between the Yun family and the He family. We can't just look at Yun Zifeng's performance and think that the Yun family is good. The He family is a scourge. That's too one-sided," Madman added. Chapter 34:19. That's right. Even if we have to help the right person. We don't want to help a white-eyed wolf. After helping them get rid of their opponent, they will bite us back. Qin Feiyang shook his head. He had seen too many tricks of biting the hand that fed them. "Then this matter," Pei Tianhong pondered for a while and shook his head with a smile. "I don't dare to talk nonsense because I don't have a good impression of the Yun and He family's ancestors." Why? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. Why else? As opponents, it's because they don't like each other. Pei Tianhong shook his head and laughed. Then, as opponents, you should have some understanding of their character, right? The white-eyed wolf asked. "In my eyes, they are all selfish people. If it's a cooperation, it doesn't matter at all. After all, they are just scheming against each other and using each other. But if you want to make friends, you have to find out for yourself." Pei Tianhong said. He didn't dare to interfere in this matter. If he really met a white-eyed wolf, even if Qin Feiyang didn't blame him, he would feel guilty. "All right." Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and said with a smile, "This matter isn't urgent. Time will reveal a person's heart. Let's go back to the Eastern continent and see what's the current situation. Then we'll go to the Western continent and see how the rogue cultivator alliance is developing." "All right." Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan nodded. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and brought the three people and one wolf to the sky above the mountains. Behind them was the Yin Devil Land. Qin Feiyang turned around and looked at the Devil Land. Frenzy, the white-eyed wolf, and Pei Tianhong also turned around. Their eyes gradually flashed with a trace of cold light. "Dragons, bring it on." Eastern continent. A few months passed. The rogue cultivator alliance had already withdrawn from the Eastern continent. The major cities that were once controlled by the rogue cultivator alliance were now all taken over by the Demon Palace. The Demon Palace had finally completely ruled the Eastern continent. And after so long, the news of the Blood Palace's destruction had already spread in the Sky Cloud realm. Qin Feiyang, the lunatic, had undoubtedly become the center of attention again. When everyone talked about them, there was only reverence and awe. Such a huge blood hall was actually destroyed in the hands of two little brats. How inconceivable was this? But this was real. No one could erase it, and no one had the right to do so. Speaking of Qin Feiyang and Madman Amo, when I first saw them in Tianfeng City, this old man felt that their lives would definitely be extraordinary. Look, it is indeed so. Ocean of Cloud City. In a small tea house, an old storyteller sat at a table, stroking his white beard. He had the demeanor of a transcendent being as he spoke calmly. When the surrounding people who were drinking tea heard this, they couldn't help but show looks of disdain. If you had seen through it earlier, you would have gone to curry favor with them. Why would you stay in this lousy place to tell stories? Why don't you take a look at where you are bragging? However, no one exposed him. Ever since the Blood Hall was destroyed, such people had appeared every day. Some people said that they knew Qin Feiyang and Madman Amo. Some people said that they had sat together and drank wine. There were even more outrageous people who said that they were distant relatives of Qin Feiyang and the lunatic. There were even people who pretended to be their fiancés. What kind of relatives could Qin Feiyang and the lunatic have in the sky cloud realm? Not to mention their fiancés. Qin Feiyang was already married. The lunatic's fiancé was also in the black tortoise realm. That was why people were afraid of being famous and pigs were afraid of being fat. Once you were famous, all kinds of demons and ghosts would come out. 2 days later, on a street, 2 ordinary-looking young men were walking side by side. One of them was holding a cute puppy in his arms. Behind them, there were 2 old men. That's right. They were Qin Feiyang, the lunatic, the white-eyed wolf, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan. In the past 2 days, they had gone to many places and had more or less understood the current situation of the eastern continent. However, when they heard those rumors, they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Distant relatives were understandable, but fiancés were a little speechless. Wang Changyuan glanced at the people coming and going and said via voice transmission, "Young master, look, many young people now have a wolf by their side. They are all learning from you." Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Indeed, as Wang Changyuan said, many young people in Cloud Sea City had a wolf by their side. Just like this moment. In their line of sight, there were 5 or 6 young men, each with a wolf, walking on the street proudly. There were gold, white, black, silver. 2 days ago, when they had just arrived in Cloud Sea City, they were still a little depressed. When did wolves become so popular? After asking around, they found out that it was because of him, because he had a white-eyed wolf by his side. So those young people all imitated him, especially those who were from wealthy families. They felt embarrassed to go out without a wolf by their side. This also made Qin Feiyang rather speechless. Unknowingly, they arrived at the entrance of Tianyue Restaurant. Although they had been in Cloud Sea City for 2 days, they hadn't been to Tianyue Restaurant and had been staying in the small restaurant. "Since we're here, why don't we go in and have a seat?" Lunatic asked. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and said with a smile, "Okay, let's see if Yi Miao and Yue Qing are here." So 4 people and a wolf entered Tianyue Restaurant. "Welcome." A waiter came up to them. Because they had changed their appearances, no one could recognize them. "Is there a private room?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "No, because it's mealtime now. Not only are there no private rooms, but there are also no seats in the hall." The waiter smiled apologetically. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. They looked up and scanned the hall. Sure enough, it was full. And the funny thing was that basically everyone here had a wolf by their side. "If you're not in a hurry, you can sit here and wait for a while. Once there are seats, I'll call you immediately." The waiter pointed to the side. There was a waiting area there, and many people were sitting there. Obviously, they were also queuing. "Is Tianyue Restaurant's business so good?" Lunatic was stunned. "It's all right. Everyone is giving us face." The waiter smiled. "All right then, we'll wait." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Okay. Please go ahead. I'll prepare the tea." With that, the waiter turned around and left quickly. Qin Feiyang and Lunatic walked into the waiting area and sat on the seats. Wang Changyuan and Pei Tianhong stood behind Qin Feiyang consciously. "You guys have a seat too. Why are you standing?" Qin Feiyang looked at the 2 of them and said suspiciously. The 2 of them looked at each other and walked to the side and sat down. The waiter walked over with a teapot and teacups and said with a smile, "I'm really sorry. Please have some tea to relieve your boredom." "Okay, go ahead." Qin Feiyang waved his hand. "Okay." The waiter nodded in response and turned around to run away. Wang Changyuan smiled. The waiter of Tianyue Restaurant has a pretty good attitude. This is the way of business. A restaurant not only needs to have special dishes, but also good service. If the service is good and the customers feel comfortable, they will naturally come back to patronize again. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Wang Chunyuan was slightly stunned and shook his head. I didn't expect young master to have such an understanding of business. I haven't eaten dragon meat, but haven't I seen a dragon? Qin Feiyang smiled. You're quite arrogant. You've seen a dragon? Brother, where have you seen it? Tell me, let me see it too. Suddenly, a purple-clothed young man looked at Qin Feiyang and asked curiously. However, there was a trace of disdain in his eyes. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He turned to look at the purple-clothed young man and couldn't help but laugh. Arrogant posture, disdainful eyes, crossing one leg over the other, and a flirtatious woman sitting in his arms. At first glance, one could tell that he was a playboy. Not to mention a playboy, he didn't even like to bother with the geniuses of the major forces. Therefore, he only took a glance and looked away. Dragon? Not only had he seen it, but he had also killed many of them. Braised, stewed, barbecued. He had basically tried them all. It was quite delicious when he first ate it, but he got sick of it when he ate more. Young Masterly, look, he's laughing at you. The flirtatious woman looked at Qin Feiyang and snuggled in the purple-clothed young man's arms coquettishly. Laughing? Hearing that, the purple-clothed young man raised his eyebrows and looked at Qin Feiyang. What are you laughing at? Is it very funny? A cold light flashed in Wang Chunyuan and Pei Tianhong's eyes. Ignore it. Qin Feiyang smiled secretly and continued drinking his tea. The flirtatious woman spoke again. Young Masterly, he actually ignored you. He really doesn't take you seriously. As a playboy, how could he withstand such provocation? He immediately put down the flirtatious woman and looked at Qin Feiyang. I'm talking to you, are you deaf? Qin Feiyang frowned. Frenzy and the white-eyed wolf raised their heads and looked at the purple-clothed young man with a mocking expression. Is this person's brain rusty? Of all the people to provoke, why did he provoke them? Wang Chunyuan and Pei Tianhong didn't care. They lowered their heads and silently tasted their tea. Don't talk about it. They were used to Qin Feiyang's tea, so they didn't feel anything when drinking this tea again. A dog. The flirtatious woman looked at the white-eyed wolf and was slightly stunned. She immediately mocked. Others bring wolves out, but you bring a dog out for a stroll. Don't you find it embarrassing? Young Masterly, show them how mighty and handsome our little white wolf is. Hearing this, the purple-clothed young man smiled proudly and said, Little White, come out! Whoosh! Immediately, a white light flew out from the purple-clothed young man's sleeve and landed on his shoulder. It was a little white wolf. It was valiant and spirited. It seemed to be showing off something. What the hell? Bringing me out embarrassing? The white-eyed wolf was annoyed when he heard this. Calm down, calm down. Frenzy quickly comforted him and then glanced at the two. It was fine that they provoked Qin Feiyang, but they actually came to provoke the white-eyed wolf. They were really hopeless. These hedonistic sons of rich parents were everywhere. How is it? The purple-clothed young man raised his hand and touched the little white wolf's head. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the others proudly. There were more than 10 people in the waiting area, but no one came to persuade them. They all looked like they were watching a good show. Chapter 30, 420. Qin Feiyang looked at the purple-clothed youth with a strange expression. What's there to show off about hugging a little white wolf? Not only the purple-clothed youth, but even the little white wolf was arrogant. This little white wolf only had the cultivation of a war god. To the people of the sky cloud boundary, it was just a pet. What's there to be proud of with a pet? They were just like 2 clowns. We're just here to eat and drink, not to cause trouble. So, brother, please stop while you're ahead. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Each one of them came to imitate him with a wolf by their side. But now they're mocking him and the white-eyed wolf. It's funny just thinking about it. Qin Feiyang wasn't surprised by this kind of playboy. He was too lazy to bother with them. Are you implying that I'm causing trouble? The purple-clothed youth didn't let go and stared at Qin Feiyang. Am I not? Qin Feiyang asked back. His patience was almost worn out. He didn't want to talk nonsense anymore. This was simply looking for trouble. Humph! The purple-clothed youth snorted and slowly returned to his seat. He said faintly, "Fine. I'm too lazy to bother with you. After all, looking at your clothes, I can tell that you're from the countryside and haven't seen the world. If I really bully you, others will say that I'm bullying the weak and ruin my reputation." Qin Feiyong was stunned. The madman, the white-eyed wolf, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan were also stunned. They wouldn't deny that they're from the countryside. After all, they were indeed born in a small place. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan may have powerful cultivation and noble status, but they were also born in an ordinary family. They had to rely on their own efforts to reach where they are today. So, they couldn't deny this point. But to say that they haven't seen the world, that's funny. Not to mention Wang Changyuan and Pei Tianhong. Even Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf had to go through countless trials and tribulations to reach where they were today. In terms of experience, not to mention this playboy in front of them, even the older generation of the sky, cloud realm couldn't compare to them. As for bullying the weak, this was even more laughable. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan were both sovereigns who had mastered two supreme profundities. Madman and Qin Feiyang's cultivation had both reached the greater success sovereign realm, and they had grasped two supreme laws. And the ingrate had even grasped the supreme profundities of three supreme laws. As for the purple-clad young man, he was only at the perfect undead realm. He hadn't even reached the half-step sovereign realm. As for the beautiful woman, she wasn't even at the undead realm. She was only at the nine heavens realm. At that time, who would be the bully? He really couldn't figure out who gave this purple-clothed young man the courage to say such words. They were just keeping a low profile and didn't reveal their aura. Otherwise, those at the undead realm and nine heavens realm could only stand at the side and tremble. However, Qin Feiyang and the others still didn't bother about it. After all, their status, strength, and mentality weren't on the same level, so there was no need to waste words. When the purple-clad young man saw this, he thought that Qin Feiyang and the others were afraid and didn't dare to say anything. The pride on his face became thicker. "Young Masterly, how much longer do we have to wait? Didn't you say that you're very familiar with the Heavenly Joy Tower's Tower Lord? Why can't you just find her and arrange a private room for us?" The beautiful woman was also very proud as she shook the purple-clad young man's arm and said in a coquettish voice, "No hurry. There aren't any empty seats now. Even if we find the Tower Lord, it's useless. She can't possibly chase the guests out. After all, she's doing business." The purple-clad young man comforted. "But we've already waited for so long." The beautiful woman seemed to have suffered a great grievance. She even glanced at Qin Feiyang and the others and said unhappily, "I still have to sit together with these bumpkins. How annoying." The madman's brows twitched. She really didn't know how to restrain herself. "Annoying, don't look at them." The purple-clad young man calmly said, "I don't care. In any case, I don't want to wait anymore." The beautiful woman turned her head and pouted. She seemed very fake. The purple-clad young man couldn't help but feel a headache. He turned and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and frowned. "The Heavenly Immortal Tower isn't a place you can come to. Hurry up and scram. Don't be an eyesore and make my woman angry. Trying to take advantage of us." Qin Feiyang instantly frowned. His patience was really reaching its limit. He didn't have the ability to find Yueqing and Yimiao to arrange a private room for them. Now he was shamelessly pushing all the responsibility to them. "Did you hear that? I told you to scram," the purple-clad young man shouted. Slap! Qin Feiyang couldn't bear it any longer. He stood up and slapped the purple-clad young man's face. At this moment, the purple-clad young man was stunned. The beautiful woman and the little white wolf were stunned as well. The people who were watching the show at the side were also stunned. He actually hit them. "You dare to hit me?" The purple-clad young man touched his face and looked at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. I'm already going easy on you. If I had my temper in the past, you would have been a corpse by now. I'll give you a chance. Get out of my sight immediately. A cold light flickered in Qin Feiyang's eyes. Such people wouldn't be obedient unless they were beaten. Bastard! Do you know who I am? The purple-clad young man roared with rage in his eyes. His roar instantly alarmed the people in the hall and the waiters of the restaurant. Everyone looked over. Isn't that young Master Li? He's a famous profligate son of our city. He was actually beaten up. Someone looked at the purple-clad young man in astonishment. Obviously, the purple-clad young man wasn't just a regular customer of Tianyue restaurant. He was also a famous person in Cloud Sea City. However, Qin Feiyang and the others didn't have any impression of him. They never paid attention to profligate sons of rich families. The waiters of the restaurant reacted and hurriedly ran into the waiting area. When they saw Qin Feiyang and the purple-clad young man, they asked suspiciously, "What's going on?" The beautiful woman looked at the waiters arrogantly and said angrily, "Drive these bumpkins out right now." "Do you think you'll be done with that?" The purple-clad young man smiled coldly. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said sternly, "If you don't kneel down and apologize today, don't even think about stepping out of Tianyue restaurant. Young Master Li, calm down first." The waiters of the restaurant saw that the situation was getting worse and better, so they quickly smiled apologetically and comforted him. Then they looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said, "If you've really said or done something wrong and offended young Master Li, please apologize to him and let's turn this into a small matter, okay?" "Ask him yourself," Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Then he returned to his seat and continued to drink his tea. The waiters looked at Qin Feiyang and then at the purple-clad young man. They were at a loss of what to do. Seeing Qin Feiyang's attitude, the purple-clad young man was furious. He took a step forward and slapped away the teacup in Qin Feiyang's hand. The teacup was smashed into pieces, and the tea splashed all over the floor. Qin Feiyang suddenly raised his head and stared at the purple-clad young man. The purple-clad young man's eyes trembled, and a sense of horror emerged in his heart. He felt that he was facing a devil at this moment. The atmosphere here was getting heavier and heavier. "Everyone, please calm down." The waiters were also in a terrible fix. He knew young Master Li's background, so he couldn't be complacent easily. As for Qin Feiyang and the others, although they looked ordinary, they must have a certain level of confidence to slap young Master Li in public. Perhaps they were just pretending to be weak. Moreover, Tianyue restaurant had a rule that forbade them from being rude to any customer. Even if it was a beggar, as long as they were here to spend money, they had to treat them warmly. So, for a moment, he didn't know how to solve the problem. There are so many people who don't know what's good for them. Yes, young Master Li's family is one of the top families in Cloud Sea City. Offending him is like courting death. Most importantly, this is Tianyue restaurant. Although the owners of Tianyue restaurant are Yue Qing and Yi Miao, everyone knows that the person behind them is Qin Feiyang. No one has ever dared to cause trouble in Tianyue restaurant. This matter is really going to blow up. We can't afford to offend the Li family, and now there's Tianyue restaurant. These people will definitely suffer. So, if you know what's good for you, you'd better apologize quickly. The crowd looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and discussed animatedly. "Did you hear that? Quickly kneel down and apologize. For the sake of Tianyue restaurant, I won't hold it against you." The young man in purple sneered at Qin Feiyang. "Sigh." Qin Feiyang shook his head and looked at the waiter. "Call your house master out." "What?" The waiter was slightly stunned and frowned. "Is there a need to disturb the house master over such a small matter?" The purple-clothed youth also looked at Qin Feiyang and sneered. "Don't you dare say that you know the house master. A person like you isn't even fit to carry the house master's shoes. So don't put on an act." People who don't know might think that you're some big shot. Qin Feiyong ignored him and looked at the waiter. The waiter hesitated. Fine, you want to see the housemaster, right? I'll call her for you. I'd like to see what you're going to say to the housemaster when she comes. The young man in purple sneered and took out the divine sound transmission stone. Qin Feiyong changed his teacup and drank his tea while saying indifferently, "As long as she comes, I don't need to say anything. She'll ask someone to drive you out directly." He originally wanted to keep a low profile, but this person was too insensible. He had no choice but to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger. Haha! As soon as he said that, it immediately caused an uproar of laughter. Even the waiter in the restaurant couldn't help but laugh. "You're bragging too much. Who do you think you are? Qin Feiyong, madman M.O.? You're such a big shot. Good, good, good." The young man in purple also laughed. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "I'd like to see if I'm the one who will be driven out. Or will you be driven out?" Qin Feiyong just smiled faintly. The young man in purple had a look of ridicule in his eyes and activated the divine sound transmission stone. Not long after, an illusory figure appeared. It was none other than Yi Miao. "Young Masterly, how do you have the time to send me a message?" Yi Miao asked with a smile. "Miss Miao Miao, I'm sorry. If it weren't for some special circumstances, I wouldn't have bothered you, as I know you must be very busy," the young man in purple said with a smile. His words were full of flattery, and his eyes were filled with admiration. Chapter 34:21. Special Circumstances. Yi Miao was taken aback. "That's right. I was slapped by a country bumpkin in public in your Tianjue restaurant. You should come and deal with this matter." There was a trace of resentment in the young man's eyes. Yi Miao frowned and smiled. "Young Masterly, don't joke around. How could someone cause trouble in Tianjue restaurant? You still don't believe me? Look at the handprint on my face. You can ask the waiter in your restaurant." The young man in purple pointed at the handprint on his face and said angrily. Then he pulled the waiter in front of him. Yi Miao Miao glanced at the purple-clothed young man's face before turning to the shop assistant and asking, "Is there really such a thing?" "Yes." The waiter nodded. Hearing this, Yi Miao's face darkened slightly and said, "Wait here, I'll be right there." With that, the illusory figure dissipated. "Brat, just you wait." The young man in purple put away the divine voice stone and looked coldly at Qin Feiyong. The flirtatious woman hugged the young man's arm and sneered. Almost everyone else had a gloating look on their faces. But for this, Qin Feiyong, frenzy, white-eyed wolf, and Pei Tianhong turned a blind eye and drank their tea quietly. In less than 10 breaths, a woman in colorful clothes with an exquisite figure and graceful bearing walked into the Tianjue Tower. "Leader," the waiter hurried to greet her. "What's going on?" Yi Miao asked. The waiter said, "I don't know either. I was serving a guest outside when I suddenly heard a commotion in the waiting area. When I turned around, I saw them arguing." Yi Miao raised her eyebrows and walked into the waiting area. The young man in purple immediately retreated to the side of the flirtatious woman and walked in front of Yi Miao, looking like a pervert. This made the flirtatious woman very unhappy. In fact, not only Yi Miao, but also Yue Qing was a goddess in the hearts of many young people. Not only was he capable, but he was also related to Qin Feiyong. If he were to marry them, it would mean that he would have a huge backer. Yi Miao glanced at the palm print on the purple-clothed young man's face. Then, her gaze landed on Qin Feiyong and the others. Powerful. She was quite knowledgeable. Although Qin Feiyong and the others were restraining their auras, and it was impossible to tell what their cultivation levels were, the temperament and the hidden sharpness of their auras were directly pressing down on the divine soul. "Long time no see." Qin Feiyong put down his teacup and looked up at Yi Miao with a smile. That smile, that gaze, Yi Miao was stunned. Why did she look so much like that man? "You are." She looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. It's only been a few months since we parted in the Western continent. Have you forgotten about me so quickly? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. After we parted in the Western continent, a few months, Yi Miao murmured. Suddenly, her gaze trembled. She looked at the frenzied one and the white-eyed wolf and exclaimed in surprise, "It's you guys!" "Who else?" Qin Feiyang smiled. "What's going on?" Seeing this scene, everyone was a little taken aback. They thought that Yi Miao would definitely help the purple-clothed young man. However, looking at the current situation, it seemed that something was not right. That was because they saw not only surprise in Yi Miao's eyes, but also a trace of reverence and even a trace of admiration. That's right, that was admiration. Admiration for the man in front of her. Miss Meow Meow? The purple-clothed young man could not help but frown. Yi Miao took a deep breath and turned to look at the purple-clothed young man. Then she looked at the waiter and said expressionlessly, "Throw them out!" "Yes, throw them out." The purple-clothed young man sneered. He thought that Yi Miao meant to throw Qin Feiyang and the others out. The waiter was not sure at first, but after hearing the purple-clothed young man's words, he thought so too. He walked towards Qin Feiyang and the others. "I mean, throw this piece of trash with the surname Li out." Yi Miao looked at the waiter and shouted. The waiter was stunned. He quickly stopped and looked at the purple-clothed young man. "Miss Meow Meow, are you mistaken?" The purple-clothed young man was also stunned. Yi Miao turned a deaf ear to his words and glanced at the waiter. "Do you want me to repeat myself?" The waiter shuddered and immediately ran to the purple-clothed young man. He pointed at the door and said, "Young Master Li, please." "Yi Miao, what do you mean?" Young Master Li was instantly furious. He actually managed to blast him out of the room. As the son of the Li family patriarch, he was treated in such a manner again. This was simply a humiliation to him. "Young Master Li, don't make it difficult for me." Seeing this, the waiter frowned and said in a low voice, "Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to me like this?" The purple-clothed young man shouted at the waiter. Then he looked at Yi Miao and said angrily, "You need to give me an explanation." "Why should I explain my actions to you? If you really want an explanation, I can only tell you that you've offended someone you shouldn't have." Yi Miao sneered. "Someone I shouldn't have?" Hearing this, the purple-clothed young man was stunned. He could not help but look at Qin Feiyang and the others. Could it be that these people were pretending to be weak? The others were also thinking about it. With the strength of Tianyue Restaurant, they did not even care about those wealthy and prominent families. This was because Qin Feiyang was not the only one behind Tianyue Restaurant. The Demon Palace was also taking care of them. However, at this moment, Yi Miao said that they had offended someone they should not have offended. This was enough to prove that these people definitely had a powerful background. Men. Seeing that the purple-clothed young man did not move, the waiter shouted. Immediately, 5 burly men in black ran out from the back hall. They were all at the eternal perfection stage. "Throw them out," the waiter said. The 5 burly men in black nodded and immediately went forward. They led the purple-clothed young man and the beautiful woman to the entrance and threw them on the street like garbage. The little white wolf was not spared either. The 2 men and the wolf were in an extremely sorry state. "From now on, you're not allowed to take half a step into Tianyue Restaurant." Yi Miao walked to the entrance and said coldly to the 2 men. Then she turned and walked toward Qin Feiyang and the others with a smile on her face. It was a completely different treatment. The purple-clothed young man got up and looked at the crowd around him. They were all looking at him with ridicule. The anger in his heart could not be contained. He stared at Yi Miao's back and muttered, "Bitch, just you wait." With that he turned and left angrily. "Young Master Li," the beautiful woman hurriedly chased after him. "Get lost." The purple-clothed young man turned and mercilessly kicked the beautiful woman away. The woman was rolling on the ground in pain. I didn't expect that. He really didn't say much, and he already chased young Master Li out. Isn't Yi Miao going to ask about the details? Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang and the others, their hearts filled with disbelief. Who exactly were these people? Looking at Yi Miao again, she walked to Qin Feiyang and the others and said with a smile, "When did you come back?" 2 days ago. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. 2 days ago. Why did you come to Tianyue restaurant only now? Besides, you should have told me in advance that you were coming so that I could have prepared a welcome dinner for you. Don't you treat me as a friend? Yi Miao was a little unhappy. Not at all. I know you're very busy, so I didn't want to disturb you. Qin Feiyang smiled. Since you're here, I have to welcome you personally no matter how busy I am. After Yi Miao finished speaking, she looked at the waiter beside her and ordered, "Arrange a private room immediately." "Boss, there are no more private rooms." The waiter hurriedly said. "No more? If there's no more, make one available." Yi Miao said angrily, "But there are guests everywhere. How can we make one available?" The waiter was a little troubled. Yi Miao was stunned, then patted her head. She looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said with a smile, "I'm so happy to see you guys back that I'm a little confused." Then she looked at the waiter again and said, "Tell the kitchen to prepare a portion of all the signature dishes of Tianyue restaurant and send it to the VIP room. Also, go to the wine cellar and send the best wine to me." VIP room? The waiter was slightly stunned and could not help but look up at the top floor. There were hundreds of private rooms in Tianyue restaurant, but there was only one VIP room. This VIP room was never open to the public by the two bosses. It was specially used to entertain distinguished guests. Those who had entered the VIP room were all famous big shots, such as the Demon Hall Master, Deputy Hall Master Chuyin, and Elder Hua. In short, except for such people, no one was qualified to step into the VIP room on the top floor. But now, the boss actually wanted to use the VIP room to entertain these people in front of them. This background was truly unfathomable. "Go quickly," Yi Miao Miao shouted. "Yes, yes, yes." The waiter came back to his senses, nodded hurriedly, and ran to the kitchen. Yi Miao also looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Qin," but before she could say anything, Qin Feiyang interrupted Yi Miao and said with a smile, "You're the host. You go first." Yi Miao was stunned and nodded with a smile. Then she turned and walked upstairs with a trace of suspicion. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other and also stood up to follow. Awesome. Who the hell is this? Even Yi Miao is so polite. Everyone looked at the backs of Qin Feiyang and the others with a look of suspicion. About a moment later, Qin Feiyang and the others followed Yi Miao into the VIP room. The VIP room was extremely large, magnificent, and incomparably imposing. Yi Miao walked into the tea room, pointed at the chair beside the tea table, and said with a smile, "Qin Dage, please sit." "Sit down." Qin Feiyang nodded and led Madman and Pei Tianhong to sit in front of the tea table. "You should be big, brother Madman." Yi Miao looked at Madman and asked with a smile, "Little girl, you have good eyesight." Madman laughed and pointed at Pei Tianhong and Pei Tianhong, saying, "Then guess who these two are?" Yi Miao looked at the two with a trace of suspicion in her eyes. "All right, don't keep me in suspense. They are Old Pei and Old Wang, the Blood Hall's Hall Master and the Dark Guard's Deputy Commander. You've seen them before." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Yi Miao's heart trembled as she bowed and said, "Greetings to the two lords." Although Pei Tianhong and Pei Tianhong had kidnapped her, the two of them were too strong. Now that they were following Qin Feiyang, she didn't dare to have any complaints. Pei Tianhong waved his hand. He didn't feel guilty or apologetic, because in his eyes, other than Qin Feiyang, no one had the right to make him apologize, even if he had done something to hurt Yi Miao. Chapter 34:22. After knowing that it was Pei Tianhong and Wang Chuanyuan, Yi Miao seemed a little unnatural. Don't be nervous. We're all on the same side now. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Yi Miao nodded and looked at Pei Tianhong and Wang Chuanyuan. Then she looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Why did you change your appearance?" Previously, when she was about to call Qin Dage, she was also stopped by Qin Feiyang. So, there should be something wrong. As for the purple-clothed young man, she did not ask. If it was someone else, she would definitely ask clearly. But the person involved was Qin Feiyang. After being together for so long, she understood Qin Feiyang's character. He would not take the initiative to cause trouble. Moreover, with Qin Feiyang's current strength and status, a playboy like the purple-clothed young man would not even bother to look at them, let alone take the initiative to provoke them. So without a doubt, it must be the purple-clothed young man who caused trouble first. It's a long story. When Elder Hua and the others come, I'll tell you slowly. Anyway, for now, try not to get involved with me. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and took out the divine sound transmission stone. Buzz! After a while, Elder Hua's shadow appeared. Elder Hua's face was filled with joy because, through the divine sound transmission stone, he knew that it was Qin Feiyang who sent him a message. But when he saw the unfamiliar face in front of him, he was stunned. But soon, he realized what was going on. It must be Qin Feiyang who changed his appearance, because it was impossible for anyone to impersonate the divine sound transmission stone. Elder Hua, long time no see. Qin Feiyang smiled. Brat, you still dare to smile? What did you say back then? Before you left, you told us. But what happened? You ran to the Een Demon Land without saying a word. Elder Hua's face darkened. I'm sorry. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly. You don't need to tell this old man these things. Go tell your master. When he found out that you went to the Shadow Demon Land without a word, he and the Hall of Famers were very worried. Elder Hua said indifferently. Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist looked at each other and felt quite touched. Qin Feiyang said, when the time comes, we will go to the Western continent to ask for forgiveness. Come to the Tianyue building first. It's best if you bring Chu Yun and the Hall Master with you. I have something to say. What is it? Elder Hua was suspicious. Something very important. Qin Feiyang's eyes darkened. Seeing this, Elder Hua's eyelids twitched. Looking at Qin Feiyang's expression, he knew that it wasn't a small matter. He nodded and said, All right, I'll go look for the Hall Master and little Yun immediately. Don't let anyone see you. Go directly to the VIP room. Qin Feiyang reminded. Yes. Elder Hua nodded and turned off the divine voice stone. Qin Feiyang also put away the divine voice stone. Yi Miao had already brewed the tea. Qin Feiyang took a sip of the tea and asked, Where's Yueqing? Why don't I see her? Sister Yueqing is in the Western continent now, Yi Miao said with a smile. The Western continent? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. Isn't our goal to open a branch in the Western continent? In the past, the Blood Hall controlled the Western continent and we couldn't do anything about it. But it's different now. The Rogue Cultivators Alliance is in charge of the Western continent now. Back then, after you sent us back to the Eastern continent, Sister Yueqing and I went to the Deputy Alliance Master and told him about our request. He agreed without hesitation. So, Sister Yueqing has been busy in the Western continent, and I stay behind to look after the Tianyue building in the Eastern continent. Yi Miao said with a smile. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. The madman laughed cruelly and said, Then shouldn't you thank us properly? We've never dared to forget the help that Qin Dage and Brother Mo have given us. And now, regardless of whether it's the Tianyue building in the Eastern continent or the Western continent, we've given 1/3 of our profits to the Demon Hall and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance for free. It's a win-win situation. Yi Miao Miao smiled. That's right. After all, You're in someone else's territory. Just treat it as a protection fee. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yes. Yi Miao nodded. What about Yun Ziang? Qin Feiyang asked. There's no news. Yi Miao shook her head. There's still no news? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. Ever since he left last time, he hasn't come back. And he hasn't responded to any of our messages. If not for the fact that the contract bridge is still there, we would have thought that he had unfortunately died outside. But we don't know where exactly he is. And what exactly is he doing? Yi Miao Miao sighed while dense worry covered the space between her brows. The existence of the contract bridge didn't mean that he was definitely safe. He could be trapped somewhere, or he could be kidnapped. In any case, it was worrying. After all, she and Yueqing had been taken care of by Yun Xing back then. And back then, the establishment of the Tianhua building was also thanks to Yun Xing's help. Otherwise, with Yueqing's ability, it wouldn't have been so smooth. Wait, Yun Xiang? Yun Zifeng? These two names seem a little... White-Eyed Wolf was suddenly surprised. Qin Feiyang and the other three were also slightly taken aback. That's right. Yun Xiang, Yun Zifeng. Why did these sound like brothers' names? Was it a coincidence? It should be a coincidence. The Sky Cloud realm is so big. There are even people with the same name, not to mention only one-word difference. And the Yun family doesn't seem to have a young man named Yun Xiang. Pei Tianhong said. Really? Qin Feiyang asked. Pei Tianhong thought for a moment and said, I don't know about the ordinary disciples of the Yun family, but I can guarantee that there are no genius disciples of the Yun family. Ordinary disciples. Qin Feiyang lowered his head, his eyes flickering. Pei Tianhong said that the monster protected by the Yun family had activated a kind of strongest law. If he remembered correctly, Yun Xiang had mastered the space-time law, and it just so happened that his surname was Yun. Was this really a coincidence? Swish! At this moment, a space-time crack appeared. Following closely, 3 figures walked out of the space-time crack. It was Elder Hua and the other 2. They had been to this VIP room before, so they knew the coordinates. Let's also show our faces. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly, took out the facial restoration pill, and threw it into his mouth. Frenzy, White-Eyed Wolf, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan all returned to their original appearances. It really is you guys. Looks like you guys have gained a lot in the Een Devil Land. You guys have already broken through to the greater Success Dominator realm. Chu Yin looked at Qin Feiyang in frenzy and said, Of course. Frenzy smiled proudly. You guys really don't know what it means to be low-key. Chu Yun rolled her eyes, then looked at Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan, her pupils shrinking slightly. Why was there such a sense of oppression? Although Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan didn't reveal any aura, the moment their gazes met, Chu Yin suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of oppression in her heart. This was like the oppression from a superior. Demon Palace Hall Master and Elder Hua were also sizing up the two of them, and they also felt a strong sense of oppression. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan didn't speak, silently drinking their tea with an unfathomable look. Did you find the fire dragon? Elder Hua retracted his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang, Frenzy, and White-Eyed Wolf. Found it. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then did you kill it? Elder Hua asked. No. Qin Feiyang shook his head. No. Elder Hua was stunned. One had to know that Qin Feiyang brought 3 sovereign weapons, Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan, 9 commanders, and 6,000 dark guards with him. Such a lineup could flatten an entire continent, but they couldn't kill the fire dragon? What a joke! When we went in, we brought a horsetail whisk. As for the ancient castle and your sovereign weapons, they are all recovering in the Black Tortoise world. The 6,000 dark guards and 9 commanders are also recovering in the Black Tortoise world. The fire dragon's strength and foundation far exceeded our imagination, so not only did we not kill it, we almost lost our lives. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. It's that powerful. Elder who couldn't believe it. Although they didn't bring the ancient castle and their sovereign weapons, they still had the horsetail whisk and Pei Tianhong. Moreover, the white-eyed wolf, Frenzy, and Qin Feiyang weren't weak either. Putting everything else aside, just the horsetail whisk strength was enough to kill the fire dragon easily. I called you guys here to tell you guys about this. You guys have to be mentally prepared, Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. Elder Hua and the others looked at each other. Was it that serious? Then I'll leave first, Miao said. She was very tactful. Since it was something important, it was better for her to leave. No need. You'll know about this sooner or later. It's better for you to know now. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Okay. Miao nodded and sat quietly at the side. Qin Feiyang looked at Wang Changyuan and said, Old Wang, don't hide anything. Tell us everything about the dragons. Yes. Wang Changyuan drank a mouthful of tea to moisten his throat, then put down the teacup and set up a soundproof barrier. He told them everything he saw and experienced in the Demon Land. In the entire VIP room, there was no other sound except for Wang Changyuan's voice. In the meantime, the waiter brought the food and wine, but was sent away by Miao. About half an hour later, Wang Changyuan finally finished and looked at the four of them. That's it. You guys take your time to digest it. They indeed needed time to digest it. Although Elder Hua and the others were big shots of the Demon Palace and the overlord of the Eastern Continent, it was the first time they heard about the dragons, just like Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan. Originally, in their opinion, big shots like them were already at the top of the pyramid in the sky cloud boundary. Except for the sovereign weapons, they were invincible. As long as they joined forces, it wouldn't be a problem to unify the sky cloud boundary. But they never thought that there would be such a huge monster hidden in the Demon Land. Not to mention the strength of the dragon tribe, there were already 2 sovereign divine weapons in their possession. For them, it was completely a bolt of lightning that caught them off guard. It was hard for them to accept it. Even Elder Hua and the others were like this, let alone Miao. She was so scared that she couldn't even speak. Chapter 34:23. After a long time, Elder Hua and the other 2 finally finished digesting it. In other words, the dragon race has begun to hunt you down. Elder Hua asked. If it wasn't for Qin Feiyang and the others, they wouldn't have believed it even if they were beaten to death. It was too shocking. Who would have thought that there was such a behemoth hidden in the sky cloud realm? The most important thing was, for so many years, there had been no news of the disappearance of the dragons. If it wasn't for Qin Feiyang and the others chasing after the fire dragon and going deep into the inner area, they would probably never have discovered the existence of the dragons. Dragon's nest, dragons, just how strong was this mysterious force? That's right. As expected, they should be blocking the exit of the Devil Land. Qin Feiyang nodded. Sure enough, when the devil is 1 foot tall, the Tao is 10 feet tall. Although the dragons are powerful compared to you guys, it doesn't seem to be enough. Elder Hua chuckled. You don't have to praise us like that. Facing the dragons, we are also scared to death. Qin Feiyang shook his head. This wasn't an ordinary force. To put it bluntly, Qin Feiyang and the others weren't afraid of the Divine Palace and Sky Palace at all. But this was the dragons. So far, 2 sovereign divine weapons had appeared. Who knew how many more they had? Then, how are you going to deal with it? The Devil Palace Lord asked. We definitely can't fight them head-on. Let's slowly find an opportunity. However, from now on, you have to keep a distance from us. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. The 3 fell silent. We don't care. We have nothing to lose. At most, we will fight them to the death. If we can't win, we will run. but you guys are different. You are the leaders of the Devil Palace with heavy responsibilities. You can't give up the Devil Palace and follow us to the edge of the world." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. "Makes sense." Chu Yun nodded. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Not bad. You still know how to think for others." Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He looked at Chu Yun curiously and asked, "From what you're saying, in your eyes in the past, I was a selfish person?" Cough, cough. Chu Yun coughed dryly to hide the awkwardness on her face. In the past, he did not have a good impression of Qin Feiyang and the madman. As far as she was concerned, the reason Qin Feiyang and Lu Xian were on good terms with the Devil Hall was entirely because they wanted to rely on the Devil Hall to deal with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Blood Hall. Qin Feiyang felt helpless. What happened to sincerity and trust? Miao asked. "So, you changed your appearance and came to see us because you were worried that you would implicate us?" "That's right. If I come to you openly now, the dragons will definitely come looking for you when they receive the news. At that time, there's no guarantee that nothing will happen." Qin Feiyang sighed. "But whether it's the Devil Hall or my Tianhua building, everyone knows about our relationship with you. Even if we pretend that we don't know each other now, no one will believe us." Yi Miao frowned. "That's for sure. After the dragons enter the eastern continent, they will definitely come looking for you after investigating what happened. However, we are the only ones who know what kind of relationship we have. When the dragons ask you about it, you can say that in the past we were only using each other and taking what we needed. As long as the dragons are a little more rational, they won't do anything to you. At most, they will send someone to monitor you." Qin Feiyang said. "Why?" Chu Yun asked. "Because your Devil Hall is the overlord of the eastern continent. Although your strength is much weaker than the dragons, after so many years of operation, you have already won the hearts of the people. There's a good saying that water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it. This sentence can also be used on the dragons. They dare to kill anyone, but they don't dare to offend everyone in the world. And you have to know that although the dragons have always existed in the Sky Cloud realm, they have never appeared. Now that they suddenly appear, everyone will definitely resist them at first. So, if they appear too strong and ferocious as soon as they appear, it will definitely arouse strong disgust from everyone. Although they are strong, they definitely don't have the guts to become enemies with everyone in the world." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. "That makes sense." Elder Hu nodded and asked with a smile, "Then, what if they ask us to deal with you with them?" "It doesn't matter. Just do it. We won't blame you." Qin Feiyang shrugged. "Don't make it sound so nice. If they hold a grudge against us, we can't afford to offend them." Chu Yun said. "Do I look like that kind of person to you?" Qin Feiyang was helpless. Couldn't they trust him a little more? They had agreed that they would be friends in the future. Besides, Fire Lotus was elder, was disciple. No matter what, he couldn't do something like deceiving his master. "Little Yin, why do I feel that you always like to bicker with old Qin?" Madman looked at Chu Yin and chuckled. "Shut up." Chu Yun glared at him. "Do I have to shut up just because you want me to? I am now a man who has mastered two of the strongest profound meanings." Madman was proud. Amazing. Chu Yin looked at him indifferently. Of course. Madman smiled proudly. He didn't know what it meant to be thick-skinned. Chu Yin was so angry that her teeth itched. Chu Yin was speechless. Elder Hu shook his head and laughed. He waved his hand and said, all right. Those who don't know will think that you two are arguing." "Huh." Madman was stunned. Chu Yun's expression stiffened slightly. She looked at Elder Hu angrily and said, "Old man, what are you talking about? How can you say this casually?" "That's right. How can you say this casually? I am a handsome man with extraordinary talent. How can I fancy such a tigress?" Madman pursed his lips. When Chu Yun heard this, she immediately pointed her spear at Madman and shouted, "What did you say? Say it again. Tell me the truth. Let me tell you, I am taken. Don't have any ideas about me." Madman scratched his chin and said shamelessly. Chu Yin clenched her jade-like hands and was about to go berserk. "Stop, stop." Elder, who also had a helpless look on his face. He was just trying to persuade them, but he didn't expect them to become more and more fierce. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and Madman and said, "Our Demon Palace and Heavenly Joy Tower are easy to deal with. Although you are disciples of our Demon Palace, it is only a name. As for Fire Lotus, although she is my personal disciple, not many people know about it. The only thing that is difficult to deal with now is the Rogue Cultivator Alliance." That's right. The Vice Alliance leader of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Hall of Famers are both your masters. Moreover, this is something that everyone in the world knows. They can't possibly say that they used each other in the past, right? Even if they say that, those dragons will definitely not be stupid enough to believe them. The Demon Palace Hall Master also spoke. "I have already planned for this matter. In short, I will not implicate any of you." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he called out Fire Lotus. "Greetings, Master." "Greetings, Hall Master, Senior Sister." Fire Lotus bowed to Elder Hua and the other two. "Senior Sister?" Madman was stunned. Didn't Elder Hua say before that Chu Yun is his student? So Chu Yin is equivalent to Fire Lotus's Senior Sister. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. "That's right." Madman slapped his head. Good, good, good. You have already broken through to the half-step ruler realm. It seems like you haven't been lazy these past few months." Elder, whose face was full of love. "Qin Dage and Little Madman have improved so quickly. How would I dare to be lazy?" Fire Lotus shook her head and smiled. "What are you comparing with them for? They are two monsters." Elder, who pursed his lips, then smiled and said, "You have to have a good attitude and fight steadily. Don't be in a hurry." "Okay." Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Return the Sovereign Divine weapon to them. Don't let others say that we want to take their Sovereign Divine weapon. Don't be so weird. I didn't say that." Chu Yin raised her eyebrows. "Senior Sister, can you not take it personally? Are we talking about you?" Madman looked at her with disdain. Chu Yun glared at him fiercely. Fire Lotus chuckled, then took out a red sword and handed it to Elder Hua. Elder Hua sized up the red sword and nodded with a smile. "Not bad, not bad." In just a few months, it has been restored to its original state. The origin energy is indeed the best medicine for Sovereign Divine weapon. Master, it has only been a few months outside, but hundreds of thousands of years have passed in the Black Tortoise world. Fire Lotus reminded. Yes, yes, yes. Look at my head. I am so old and muddle-headed. I always forget about this. Elder, who shook his head, looking at these young people in front of him who were like the sun in the sky. He had no choice but to admit that he was old. Suddenly, Elder Hu turned to look at Chu Yin and said, "Xiao Yin, why don't you make a trip to the Een Devil Land and see if the dragons are really guarding the exit?" "Why aren't you going?" Chu Yin frowned. Elder Hu laughed embarrassedly. "Don't you control the laws of time and space? It's more convenient. Don't make it sound so nice. You're obviously lazy." Chu Yun glared at Elder Hua in dissatisfaction, then opened a space teleportation tunnel and left. Did you see that? A typical sharp-tongued but soft-hearted person. Elder Hua looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and laughed. Qin Feiyang, Madman, and Fire Lotus looked at each other and smiled. Then, Qin Feiyang picked up his teacup and drank his tea while muttering to himself, as if he was thinking about something. Fire Lotus started to chat with Elder Hua. The Demon Palace's Hall Master also started to chat with Pei Tianhong. Although they were old enemies in the past, They had known each other for many years and had quite a bit of friendship. Furthermore, now that Pei Tianhong had followed Qin Feiyang, he could be considered to have turned from an enemy into a friend. Dan Wangkai. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang seemed to have made a decision and secretly sent a sound transmission to Dan Wangkai. What is it? Dan Wangkai's voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Qin Feiyang sent a sound transmission. Organize 3 sets of pills that can open the door to potential for me. Do you need every kind of pill? Dan Wangkai was startled and asked. Of course, the whole set. Qin Feiyang replied. All right, I'll organize it right away. Dan Wangkai did not ask for the reason. Other than refining pills, he was not interested in these things. In any case, he would just do whatever Qin Feiyang said. Not long later, Dan Wangkai prepared 3 palm-sized jade boxes that contained all sorts of pills. There were potential pills, small fortune pills, great fortune pills, and so on. Qin Feiyang took out 3 jade boxes and gently placed them on the tea table without saying a word. Chapter 34:24. Elder Hua and the others also saw the 3 jade boxes, but because the lid was closed, they couldn't sense the aura of the pills, so they didn't pay much attention to it. After a while, Qin Feiyang turned to look at Yi Miao and said with a smile, Miao Miao, you go out first. I have some personal matters to discuss with Elder Hua and the others. Okay, Yi Miao nodded. She was very sensible and didn't ask anything. She stood up and left. What personal matters? Elder Hua and the Demon Hall Master looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang looked at the tightly shut door and smiled at the 2 of them. I'll tell you when Senior's sister Chu Yin comes back. I guarantee that you'll be surprised. So mysterious. Elder Hua rolled his eyes at him and continued to chat with Fire Lotus. His words were filled with concern for Fire Lotus. After a while, a space-time rift appeared. Chu Yin walked out from inside, her face full of solemnity. What's wrong? Elder Hua and the Demon Hall Master raised their heads to look at Chu Yin and couldn't help but frown. There are indeed many people hiding at the exit of the Een Devil Land. Chu Yin said in a deep voice. Is he inside? Qin Feiyang waved his hand and projected the figure of the white-clothed youth with his divine power. Yes, there's also a little girl. Chu Yin waved her hand and a woman in a black dress appeared. She said, behind her is a black-clothed old man and a black-clothed burly man. The aura they exuded is very terrifying. It's them? Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at each other. You've seen them before? Chu Yin asked. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and explained. At that time when senior brother Feng Zi was receiving the inheritance, it was them who came out halfway. As for the woman who attacked me from behind, I think it should be her. We've finally found her. The madman and the white-eyed wolf also laughed. An eye for an eye. When this woman came to ambush them, they naturally had to let her have a taste of being ambushed. Then how strong are they? Elder Hua asked. Very strong. This old man has mastered the laws of destruction and the profundities of darkness. This big man, on the other hand, has mastered the laws of force and the laws of earth. Qin Feiyang said. This, Chu Yin and the others looked at each other. One of them actually grasped 2 supreme profundities. It's not only them. The middle-aged couple beside the white-clothed young man also each grasped 2 supreme, profound meanings. As for the sovereign divine weapon, the white dragon sword that we spoke of earlier, it is also in the hands of that young man. Now you know how strong the dragons are. Qin Feiyang smiled. You can still laugh? Elder Hua and the other 2 were speechless. Facing such a colossus, if it were anyone else, they would definitely be worried to death all day long. But this kid didn't seem to care at all. If you don't laugh, will you cry? If crying can solve the problem, I don't mind bawling my eyes out. Qin Feiyang shook his head with a smile. He finally pushed 3 jade boxes in front of the 3 and said with a smile, "These are for you." "For us?" The 3 were startled. Chu Yun grabbed one of the jade boxes and asked suspiciously, "What's this?" "You'll know when you see it." Qin Feiyong smiled. Frenzy, White-Eyed Wolf, Fire Lotus, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Chanyuan were curious too, as Qin Feiyong didn't tell them about it in advance. Chu Yun slowly opened the jade boxes. A strong medicinal fragrance immediately burst out, followed by dragon-shaped core essences floating out from the jade boxes. Each pill had 7 dragon-shaped core essences. They were round and emitted a blurry glow. "What kind of pill is this?" Chu Yun was surprised. "A pill that unlocks the door to potential." Qin Feiyong smiled. "What? A pill that unlocks the door to potential?" Apart from Chu Yun, Elder Hua and the Demon Hall leader were stunned too. Frenzy, Fire Lotus, and White-Eyed Wolf exchanged glances with one another with a smile in their eyes. The 3 of them were indeed worthy of Qin Feiyong's effort. Wang Chanyuan and Pei Tianhong exchanged glances with one another and couldn't help but let out wry smiles. They had risked their lives to obtain the chance to unlock the door to potential, but the 3 of them had obtained all the pills without doing anything. Was this the difference between humans? However, there was nothing they could do. Although the 3 of them hadn't done anything, they had helped Qin Feiyong and the others greatly in the past. In fact, if it weren't for the Demon Hall supporting Qin Feiyong and the others, Qin Feiyong and the others wouldn't have been able to develop so smoothly in the Eastern continent. They deserved it. For Qin Feiyong to take out those medicinal pellets, it meant that he truly trusted the 3 of them. After a few breaths, Elder Hua and the Demon Hall leader came back to their senses and immediately stood up. Each of them grabbed a jade box and opened it. After a quick comparison, the pills in the 3 jade boxes were exactly the same. "Elder Hua, are these really the pills that can unlock the door to potential? You stayed in the Black Tortoise world for the longest time, so you should have asked around in detail." Chu Yun asked in her heart with disbelief in her eyes. Qin Feiyong was actually willing to give them such precious pills? It was too unexpected. Elder Hua took out a potential pill and examined it carefully before putting it back. He then took out another potential pill and examined it carefully again. He took a deep breath and transmitted his voice. "These are the pills that can unlock the door to potential. Although you don't recognize the other pills, you definitely aren't unfamiliar with the Shangqing nature pill. This is the pill that can unlock the door to potential in the sovereign realm." The 2 of them looked at the Shangqing nature pill in the jade boxes and didn't know what to say. You should know how shocking it would be if the pills that can unlock the door to potential were leaked. That's why I've been hiding it from you. Qin Feiyong smiled apologetically. It's fine, it's fine." Elder Hua waved his hand and couldn't calm down for a long time. Actually, they already knew. They wanted to ask Qin Feiyong previously, but Qin Feiyong went to the Yin Demon Land. They had no choice but to wait. However, they didn't expect that. He actually gave it to them when they met this time. It really caught them off guard. After a long time, Elder Hua took a deep breath and closed the jade boxes. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Is the first volume of the alchemy scripture in your hands?" I didn't know before, but after I asked old Pei about the details of the first volume of the alchemy scripture and compared it with the handwriting in the second volume, we finally confirmed that the alchemy scripture in my hands is indeed the first volume of the alchemy scripture. Qin Feiyong said, "Then where did you get the first volume of the alchemy scripture?" The Demon Hall master asked. "The lower realm, the place where I was born and raised. And it's not a handwritten copy, it's the real thing." Qin Feiyong smiled slightly. The 3 of them looked at each other, their faces full of bitter smiles. No wonder they couldn't find any news of the first volume of the alchemy scripture after searching all the places in the Sky Cloud realm. It turned out that the first volume of the alchemy scripture had gone to the lower realm. It was really fate playing tricks on them. Why would a complete alchemy scripture be divided into 2 volumes? The most outrageous thing was that the first volume was thrown in the lower realm and the second volume in the sky cloud realm. Without the first volume, what was the use of the second volume? After a while, the 3 of them calmed down and put away the jade boxes without being polite. I hope the 3 of you can help me keep this a secret. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Of course, the 3 of them nodded. They still had this bit of common sense. Once it was leaked, it would definitely attract countless people. For Qin Feiyang, there would be endless trouble. After being together for so long, they knew a little about Qin Feiyang's character. He was most afraid of trouble. All right then. In the future, we will part ways for the time being. Qin Feiyang stood up and smiled. You're leaving just like that? The 3 of them were stunned. Why? You still can't bear to part with us. The madman laughed. Let's talk about you. Your strength is not much, but your face is really thick. Chu Yin rolled her eyes. The madman laughed and said, Your face is not thick, but it's a little. What? Make it clear. Chu Yin stared at the madman with an unfriendly expression, like a tiger that was about to go crazy. This, cough cough, I'm praising you. Beautiful, capable, and impeccable. Men will feel ashamed when they see you, but you really have to change. If you're so strong, be careful that you won't be able to get married in the future. After the madman said that, he took the last illusion form pill and threw it into his mouth. In the end, he ran out without looking back. Chu Yin was quite happy at first. Beautiful, capable, these were all recognized. But when she heard the last sentence, she didn't feel good. He actually cursed her that she wouldn't be able to get married. She was immediately annoyed. But seeing the madman run out, she didn't dare to chase after him. She could only gnash her teeth and say some harsh words. Looking at this scene, Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh. No one would have thought that the dignified Deputy Hall Master of the Demon Palace would have such a side. Fire Lotus, you go to the Black Tortoise realm first. Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Lotus and said, Okay. Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent Fire Lotus to the Black Tortoise realm. Then he looked at Elder Hua and the other 2 and said with a smile, Then we'll take our leave first. Be careful. Elder Hua nodded. I will. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly, took out an illusion form pill, and changed back to his previous appearance. Then he led White-Eyed Wolf and Pei Tianhong out of the VIP room. Sigh. I really didn't expect the situation in the Sky Cloud realm to become so complicated. Elder Hua shook his head and sighed. Yeah, the dragons haven't even officially stepped into the eastern continent, but I can't help but feel pressured. Chu Yu nodded. Such a colossus was like a mountain pressing down on their heads. It made it hard for them to breathe. Don't think too much. According to Qin Feiyang, our demon palace shouldn't be in too much trouble. Little Yin, when we go back, immediately give the order. Whether it's the disciples, the demon palace, or the city lords, they have to behave. If anyone dares to cause trouble, then don't blame me for being merciless. A cold light flashed in the demon palace hall master's eyes. Understood. Chu Yun nodded. Then let's go back. Hurry up and open the gate of potential. Comprehend the supreme profundities of the various laws. I have a feeling that Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan should have already grasped the 2 supreme profundities. The Demon Palace Hall Master said, This old man has the same feeling, because that pressure is too obvious. All along, our strength has been on par with theirs. Now we can't be suppressed by them. That would be embarrassing. Elder Hu smiled. Then, Chu Yun opened a space-time teleportation channel and left. Chapter 34:25. Outside, when Qin Feiyang and the others landed and walked into the hall, everyone's gaze landed on them. Who was it? Why did Meow place so much importance on them? Qin Feiyang and the madman returned to their previous appearances. The white-eyed wolf and Pei Tianhong were no exception. Meow was waiting for Qin Feiyang and the others in the hall. When she saw Qin Feiyang and the others, she immediately went up and asked, "Are you leaving now?" Qin Feiyang nodded. "What about the food and wine I prepared?" Meow frowned. "You can eat." Qin Feiyang chuckled. "Me?" Meow shook her head, helplessly. "I can't eat alone, but I know you guys are very busy, so I won't force you guys. Take care. You too." Qin Feiyang smiled and walked out of Tianyua building. "Where are we going next?" Wang Changyuan secretly asked. Qin Feiyang smiled. "You can ask Senior Brother and the White-Eyed Wolf. They already have a plan in mind." Wang Changyuan was slightly stunned and couldn't help but turn to look at the madman and the White-Eyed Wolf. The White-Eyed Wolf glanced at Wang Changyuan and said indifferently, "You can't even guess this? You are indeed not the same as us. I'm not a roundworm in your stomach. How could I guess?" Wang Changyuan felt wronged. The madman transmitted his voice. "Old Wang, let me ask you, why did we say that we finally found the main person? Finding the main person means finding the main person. What else can there be?" Wang Changyuan was suspicious. "Your brain is not good. You have to think more." The madman shook his head. Wang Changyuan was even more puzzled. What exactly was it? Could he explain it all at once? The madman was speechless. He had already explained it so clearly, but he still couldn't understand. "Pig brain," he said. "Of course it's to give them a taste of their own medicine." Giving him a taste of his own medicine? Wang Changyuan was taken aback. After pondering for a while, he asked, "You mean we should also sneak attack that woman?" "Yes." The madman nodded and then chuckled. He sent a voice transmission. "They think we are in the Demon land, so they won't be on guard." "Understood." Wang Changyuan nodded. These few people were indeed vengeful, but it was also quite interesting. The dragons had already suffered a great loss at their hands. If this sneak attack was successful, they would definitely be furious. Suddenly, the white-eyed wolf, who was lying on Qin Feiyang's shoulder, glanced at the crowd behind him and frowned slightly. "What is it?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "It seems like someone is following us." The white-eyed wolf grumbled. "Stalking? It can't be. Who would be so reckless?" Qin Feiyang, madman, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan also secretly paid attention. Very soon, they discovered that someone was really following them. It was an inconspicuous thin man in his 40s. He was about 7 meters tall and wore a simple black robe. His tracking skills were also extremely skilled, if not for the fact that Qin Feiyang and the others were experienced people. Even if they bumped into this person, they wouldn't have thought that he was following them. Why would someone follow us? Could it be someone from the Demon Palace? Wang Changyuan was surprised. Impossible. Qin Feiyang shook his head. If the Demon Palace had something to do, there was no need to send someone to follow them. They could just say it directly. "Is that someone from Tianyua building?" Wang Changyuan asked again. "That's even more impossible." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled faintly. "No need to guess. When we catch him, the truth will naturally be revealed." Next, for people and one wolf strolled around the streets as if nothing had happened. They watched the bustling scene and walked towards the city gate. Behind them, the thin man's eyes flashed as he entered an alley. Seeing that there was no one around, he took out the divine sound transmission stone. Buzz! At that moment, the image of a middle-aged man appeared. "Master, they're heading out of the city," the thin man said respectfully. "They didn't notice us, right?" the middle-aged man asked. "No." The thin man shook his head. "Well done. All right, I'll go out of the city and make some arrangements. Lure them over later. The location is at Blackwater Lake." The middle-aged man, instructed as a cold light flickered in his eyes. Yes, the thin man replied and put away the divine sound transmission stone. He walked out of the alley and continued to follow Qin Feiyang and the others. About an hour later, Qin Feiyang and the others finally walked out of the city gate. When they saw that the thin man was still following them, they walked all the way into the mountains. Seeing this, the thin man's eyes flashed and he quickly followed them. When they were far away from the city, the thin man suddenly attacked. An expanse of the power of law surged out and covered the sky as it charged towards Qin Feiyang and the others. Qin Feiyang and the others pretended to be shocked and turned around. "You're courting death." Wang Changyuan was furious. The thin man turned around and fled in another direction. "What's going on?" Wang Changyuan was stunned. "I think he's being instructed by someone to lure us to another place." Qin Feiyang pondered and said in a low voice, "Preserve some strength and let him think that we're not strong enough." "All right." Wang Changyuan nodded. The law of lightning appeared. He controlled his strength well and collided with the thin man's power of law. Puff! Wang Changyuan immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and took a few steps back. The thin man's cultivation wasn't weak. He was at the sovereign realm. However, compared to Wang Changyuan, he was too inferior. Wang Changyuan's acting was pretty good. When the thin man sensed the fluctuation behind him, he turned around to check Wang Changyuan's situation, and a cold smile appeared on his face. With such strength, he dared to provoke the Li family? He was courting death. "You want to run after sneaking an attack on us?" "Chase!" Qin Feiyang also pretended to be angry. With a roar, Wang Changyuan immediately led them and chased after the thin man. He controlled his speed well and was slightly slower than the thin man. About a few hundred breaths later, the group went deep into the mountains, and a lake came into sight. The lake was about a few miles long. It was surrounded by mountains and old trees. This was the Blackwater Lake. Although it was called the Blackwater Lake, the lake water was extremely clear. Under the sunlight, there were layers of dazzling waves. When they flew to the center of the lake, the thin man's eyes flashed with a cold smile. He then stopped and turned around to look at Qin Feiyang and the others who were chasing after him. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. After flying above the lake, he raised his arm slightly and Wang Changyuan stopped. "Why did you sneak an attack on us?" Qin Feiyang looked at the thin man and asked. Their current aura was exactly the same as when they entered the Heavenly Joy building. They had restrained their aura, and it was impossible to see their cultivation. "Why?" "Haha," the thin man laughed loudly. His eyes were full of mockery as he said, "Because you offended someone you shouldn't have offended." As his voice fell, more than a dozen terrifying auras erupted. Splash! In the next moment, huge waves rose from the Blackwater Lake. More than a dozen people rushed out and surrounded Qin Feiyang and the others. "Young master, you really have great foresight. As expected, you purposely led us here." Wang Changyuan laughed secretly. "It's obvious." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and scanned the dozen people around him. There were a total of 13 people. The aura they exuded was quite powerful. 7 initial dominators for initial dominators and 1 greater dominator. The remaining one, Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and looked at the person with the weakest aura. It was a young man in purple. His face was filled with hatred and resentment. Wasn't this the young man who was called Young Master Li in the Heavenly Joy building? "It's you?" Frenzy, White-Eyed Wolf, and Pei Tianhong were also stunned. "Yes, it's me." The killing intent in the young man's eyes wasn't concealed at all. "What are you trying to say?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "What do you think? My Li clan is a first-rate clan in Ocean of Cloud City. It's only inferior to those extraordinary clans. You actually dared to humiliate me in public? You're courting death." The young man laughed ferociously. "The Li clan is that formidable. Qin Feiyang was surprised, but his eyes were filled with amusement. Of course. The young man smiled proudly, and then he gazed at the middle-aged man. Father, don't kill them right away. I want to torture them properly and let them have a taste of what it's like to live a life worse than death. All right. The middle-aged man nodded. This middle-aged man was the one who'd sent the message to the thin man. He was the violet-clothed young man's father and the current patriarch of the Li clan. He was the only sovereign here at the Greater Dominator Realm. The Li clan's patriarch sized up Qin Feiyang and the others, and then he gazed at the thin man and asked indifferently, "How's their strength?" "It's nothing. He suffered a huge loss when our laws collided just now." The thin man gazed at Wang Changyuan and spoke with disdain. Wang Changyuan couldn't help but want to laugh when he heard this. A sovereign at the initial stage actually dares to say that a sovereign at the perfection sovereign realm like me isn't anything great? So that's how it is. The Li clan's patriarch smiled with sudden understanding, and then he gazed at Qin Feiyang and the others. "You dare to humiliate my son in public with such little strength." "Why don't you ask why we humiliated him?" said Qin Feiyang. "It's not important." The Li clan's patriarch spoke indifferently. "It's not important?" Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned, and then he asked, "In other words, your Li clan doesn't distinguish right from wrong when dealing with something. So what if we do?" The Li clan's patriarch laughed coldly and proudly. "All right, if we encounter unreasonable people, then we can only use unreasonable methods." Qin Feiyang smiled and said indifferently, "Brother Wang, beat them up." "All right." Wang Changyuan nodded. "Beat us up?" The group of people couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. Boom! However, when Wang Changyuan released his aura without holding back, the group of people's expressions froze, and they were immediately stunned. This aura, why is it so strong? Do you really think that our strength is nothing? Wang Changyuan laughed mockingly, and the aura of a sovereign realm great perfection pressed down on the group of people like a torrent. This is a sovereign realm great perfection. The Li clan's patriarch immediately panicked. This is impossible. The thin man also looked at Wang Changyuan in disbelief. A bunch of ants dare to offend the young master. Wang Changyuan's gaze turned cold, and the group of people immediately knelt down uncontrollably. Chapter 34:26. The moment they knelt in the air, the Li family's patriarch and the others felt as if they had been hit in the head, especially the skinny man. How could he be so strong? They were filled with regret. Even a paragon sovereign realm expert had to respectfully address him as young master. What kind of existence was this young man? Do you want to know who we are? The madman looked at them with a mocking gaze. They instinctively nodded. But when they came back to their senses, the Li family's patriarch quickly shook his head. "We don't want to know." "Why?" The madman looked at him with a mocking gaze. "Because if you know, you'll definitely kill us. We were blind. Please be magnanimous and spare our lives. We're willing to compensate for the trouble we've caused you," the Li family's patriarch said in panic. "Kill us?" Madman was taken aback for a moment before he laughed and said, "You're quite enlightened." "Spare us." The Li family's patriarch knelt in the air and kowtowed. "If you don't want to know, then I'll let you know. I'll let you die in peace and know who you shouldn't have offended." The madman took out an appearance-restoring pill and placed it in his mouth. Then he quickly recovered his true appearance under everyone's gazes. "You are..." The Li family's patriarch's eyes opened wide. Wasn't this the legendary madman? How could it be him? Who didn't know of the madman's name? Not only was his talent amazing, but he also had the Hall of Famers as his master. Impossible. My eyes must be playing tricks on me. The others shook their heads and didn't want to accept this fact. Wait, if this person was the madman, then wouldn't the young man beside him be? The group looked at Qin Feiyang in unison, and their faces were as pale as paper. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and consumed an illusion pill as well, recovering his true appearance. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan exchanged glances and revealed their true appearances as well. Qin Feiyang, Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan. As a large family in Cloud Sea City, the Li family knew quite a bit about Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan. So, the Li family's patriarch was stunned on the spot. In his heart, he was terrified to the extreme. How did he provoke such a terrifying group of people? Tell me about it now. Who is it that I can't afford to offend? Madman smiled playfully. It's you, I'm sorry. We were wrong. Please give us a way out, and give us a way out. The head of the Li family was filled with regret. Was he stupid? They actually came here to scheme against this group of people? Which one of these people wasn't in existence, whose name shook the sky cloud realm? Even the Wolf King, by Qin Feiyang's side, was known by everyone. Do we look like such benevolent people? The white-eyed wolf snickered. The head of the Li family fell silent. Benevolence. That was just a joke. By now, everyone knew that the destruction of the Blood Hall was orchestrated by Qin Feiyang and the Madman. Who didn't know that the reason why the Rogue Cultivator Alliance could rule the Western continent was because of these two people? What was even more terrifying was that everyone knew that Qin Feiyang had a sovereign divine weapon in his hand and mastered a divine art that was comparable to a sovereign divine weapon. How could they afford to offend him? A cold light flashed in the eyes of the head of the Li family. Gritting his teeth, he stood up and slapped the purple-clothed youth. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. The lean man and the others also looked at him in astonishment. Father! The purple-clothed youth was also shocked and hurriedly shouted, What are you doing? What am I doing? It's all because of you, you unfilial son, causing trouble outside all day. The head of the Li family roared and slapped the head of the purple-clothed youth. Accompanied by a shrill scream, the purple-clothed youth's head exploded like a watermelon, and his divine soul was annihilated on the spot. The eyes of the lean man and the others trembled. This was killing his son to protect himself. Although it was a bit ruthless, it was understandable. After all, the opponent was Qin Feiyang, the Madman, and Pei Tianhong. If they didn't kill him, not only them, but the entire Li family would suffer, because with the current status of Qin Feiyang and the others, they didn't need to personally make a move. Just a word from them would be enough to destroy the Li family. Wasn't the Zhao family the same in the past? Because Zhao Shaojin had Qin Feiyang behind him, he had fallen to the point where no one cared about him. In these years, the Zhao family had been moving around, trying to improve their relationship, but no one helped them. Even the relatives of the Zhao family weren't willing to lend a helping hand. The reason was because of Qin Feiyang. In the current Eastern continent, who would dare to offend him? That would be courting death. Quite decisive. Qin Feiyang snickered. Is it useful? The madman sneered and looked at Wang Changyuan. Wang Changyuan understood, and the law of lightning rolled out, turning into terrifying lightning that instantly flooded the area. Don't. The Li family's patriarch and the others thought that after killing the purple-clothed youth, Qin Feiyang and the others would let them go. So when they saw Wang Changyuan make a move, they were caught off guard and hurriedly shouted. But it was useless. Lightning surged, destroying everything in all directions. The group of people screamed in pain, and their souls were destroyed one after another. This is what a spoiled brat is like. Because of a spoiled brat, the entire family is implicated. So in the future, if you have children, you must discipline them well. The white-eyed wolf looked at the madman and Qin Feiyang and said, The two of them looked at each other and directly rolled their eyes at the white-eyed wolf. What about the Li family? Wang Changyuan asked. Forget about the Li family. The Li family's patriarch is dead and they have lost their pillar. Sooner or later, they will be like the Zhao family. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and looked at the madman. Let's go to the entrance of the Demon Land. Just like that. The madman was stunned. What else? Qin Feiyong asked. The madman said, no matter what, let's wait until the horsetail whisk is repaired. The other party had a sovereign weapon. With their strength, even if their sneak attack succeeded, they might not be able to cause any actual damage to the other party. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and looked at the madman. Then you go to the western continent first and explain to Master and the others about the dragons. Okay. The madman nodded and then said, but what old was said makes sense. After all, we are the Deputy Alliance leader and the disciples of the Hall of Famers. If we don't think of a way to draw the line, the consequences will be unpredictable. Then, do you have any ideas? Qin Feiyong asked. Don't you have a lot of ideas? You still ask me. The madman pouted. I have thought about it. Just pretend to fall out with them. But to be honest, if we fall out with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance now, it will seem more deliberate. The dragons aren't stupid and aren't that easy to fool. Qin Feiyong rubbed his forehead. Fall out, the madman pondered for a while and shook his head. Right now, there doesn't seem to be a better way. There is. Qin Feiyong's eyes suddenly flashed. The madman was slightly stunned and smiled. I know you have a lot of ideas. Tell me. The premise of falling out with them is that there needs to be a convincing reason. If we take the initiative to fall out with them, then it won't work. But if Master and the others fall out first, then it's a different story. Qin Feiyong smiled. They fall out first? The madman frowned. That's right. We can set up a trap. Let Master and the others pretend to want to steal our sovereign weapon and harm us. Qin Feiyong said. The madman was stunned and asked, You mean we have to set up a trap? The reason they want to take us as disciples is to find a chance to steal our sovereign weapon. That's right. Qin Feiyong nodded. That's a convincing reason. But if that's the case, their reputation, the madman frowned. If this was the case, then the world would definitely spurn the vice leader and the Hall of Famers behind their backs. They even wanted to harm their own disciples. Although their reputation will be damaged, at least they can draw a clear line with us. Qin Feiyong said, Then it seems that we can only wrong them first. The madman pondered for a moment and said, How about this? You go to the western continent first and ask if they are willing. Actually, there are other ways. For example, Master and the others can capture us and send us to the dragons. This way, they can draw a clear line with us. Qin Feiyong said, Send us to the dragons? The madman, White-Eyed Wolf, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan looked at each other. That's right. Just treat it as a kind of flattering attitude. At that time, the dragons will watch Master and the others and send us to them. At that time, not only will the dragons not find trouble with Master and the others, but they will also trust Master and the others. Qin Feiyong smiled. Hearing this, why do I feel that this method is more effective than the first one? The madman was stunned. Qin Feiyong said, In short, you go and ask them first. If they are willing, then we will make a detailed plan. Then what are you going to do? The madman asked. I will go to the exit of the Demon Land and see how many dragons came this time. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed coldly. Okay. The madman nodded, opened a space-time rift, and turned to leave. Let's go. Qin Feiyong also looked at the White-Eyed Wolf and smiled. The White-Eyed Wolf waved its claws and opened a space-time passage. Now the madman and the White-Eyed Wolf both grasped the law of space-time, so it was much more convenient than before. Because before they had to rely on the space-time door or the snowflakes. Outside the Demon Land. The outside referred to the area outside the Demon Land. The black dragon had said that its nest was in the Black Cloud Swamp in the outside area. Whoosh! In the sky above a canyon, a space-time rift appeared, and 3 people and 1 wolf silently walked out. It was Qin Feiyang and the others. Now they did not disguise themselves because there was no need to. After coming out of the space-time rift, Qin Feiyang looked around and activated the concealment art. He took the white-eyed wolf and Pei Tianhong and flew towards the entrance of the Demon Land. His eyes flashed coldly, although Qin Feiyang looked relaxed on the surface, but in reality he was more cautious. After all, the dragons of the Sky Cloud realm and the dragons of the Ancient Realm were not on the same level. What they knew now was probably only the tip of the iceberg of the dragons. Chapter 34:27. About a moment later, the entrance to the Demon Land finally entered the line of sight of Qin Feiyang and the others. In front of the entrance, the ancient stone tablet was still standing. Qin Feiyang and the others stopped on a mountain not far away and scanned the entrance. They did not see the young man in white and the woman in black. Where were they? Chu Yunji had seen them when she came. It was impossible for them to leave in the blink of an eye. Look at that mountain peak. Suddenly, Pei Tianhong pointed to a mountain on the left. It was hundreds of feet high, and 3 figures could be seen standing on the cliff of the mountain peak. Qin Feiyang looked up and recognized at a glance that it was the young man in white and the middle-aged couple. Because they had activated the concealment technique, the 3 of them did not notice them. At this moment, they were also staring at the entrance of the Demon Land. "Young master, I saw what you were looking for." Wang Changyuan's laughter suddenly sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Qin Feiyang was stunned, looked at Wang Changyuan, and then looked in the direction Wang Changyuan was looking, only to see 3 figures standing on a mountain peak on the right. The leader was the woman in the black dress. The old man in black and the burly man in black were also standing behind the woman. Not bad looking. Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. Indeed. The white-eyed wolf nodded. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned, looked at the white-eyed wolf strangely and said, "Didn't you say that you wolves have a different appreciation level from us humans?" "The appreciation level can slowly evolve, don't you understand?" The white-eyed wolf despised. "So you're saying that you're also interested in human women? Do you want me to help you look for one?" Qin Feiyang laughed. "Get lost." The white-eyed wolf glared at him, and then said, "Besides, is she a human?" Ah, Qin Feiyang was stunned, then patted his head and said, "Yes, she's a divine dragon, and there's still a difference between us humans. But this is a good thing for you." "Good thing." The white-eyed wolf was stunned. "That's right. You're all beasts you can combine. But after you combine and give birth to a child, will it be a wolf or a divine dragon? It needs to be investigated." Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered. The corner of the ingrate's mouth twitched. He really wanted to curse, screw you. Wang Changyuan sight. "Brother, actually you can really think about it." "Think about it, you're just a wolf the white-eyed wolf said furiously. "It's not that I mean that, but it's the truth. In the eyes of the world, divine dragons are high and mighty divine beasts with noble bloodlines. But you wolves, to put it bluntly, are the synonym of insidious and lowly in the eyes of the world." Wang Changyuan secretly said, "You're the insidious one. You're the lowly one." The white-eyed wolf glared at Wang Changyuan. "I'm just trying to reason with you. If you're not convinced, go and find a dragon as your wife and prove it to everyone." Wang Changyuan said. "Provoke me?" The white-eyed wolf raised his eyebrows. "Yes, I'm provoking you. Do you want to be fooled?" Wang Changyuan laughed. "Do you think I'm that childish?" The white-eyed wolf looked disdainful, but there was an inexplicable light in his eyes when he looked at the woman in the black dress. "Look at this wolf cub's eyes. He's not really going to find a dragon as his wife, right?" Wang Changyuan glanced at the white-eyed wolf and secretly said to Qin Feiyang, "Isn't this very fun?" Qin Feiyang secretly laughed. "Haha." Wang Changyuan also secretly laughed. Let's look for other dragons. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. Not long later, they found another 3 people on the other side of the mountain. Similarly, the leader was a youth in blood-red clothes. Behind him stood a man and a woman. Their auras were also unfathomable. It seems that every prince and princess has 2 super strong experts following them. Wang Changyuan muttered, "This is the benefit of having a strong background. No matter where you go, there are people protecting you." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. "But you have to admit that people like them, who are often protected, have limited future achievements." Pei Tianhong transmitted his voice. "Not all of them. There are always a few who stand out from the crowd." Qin Feiyang shook his head. Next, they found a few more groups of people. The way these princes and princesses got along seemed to be a bit thought-provoking. Logically speaking, since they were all out to hunt them, they should work together. But now they were all in one place and kept a distance from each other. It seemed that the competition within the dragons was quite big. A total of 7 groups of people. 3 princesses for princes, 14 complete Dominator Realm experts who have mastered 2 types of profound meaning. They can't be underestimated. Wang Changyuan secretly sighed. There should still be people who haven't come out yet. Qin Feiyang whispered, "If the dragons of the Sky Cloud Realm were the same as the dragons of the Ancient Realm, then the dragons of the Sky Cloud Realm should also have 10 major races. For example, Golden Dragon, Black Dragon, White Dragon, Silver Dragon, Blood Dragon, Fire Dragon, Sword Dragon, etc. Each race should have a prince or princess. In other words, there should be a total of 10 princes and princesses. Indeed, they couldn't be underestimated." "Young Master, could it be that these princes and princesses all have a Dominator divine weapon?" Pei Tianhong suddenly thought of something and transmitted his voice. Qin Feiyang's expression stiffened. If that was the case, then they would be in big trouble. If each of them had a Dominator divine weapon, how could they play? They should run for their lives as soon as possible. I didn't see the golden-haired youth. I heard from the Fire Dragon that it was a golden dragon and was addressed as His Highness. Then I think it should be the prince of the 5-clawed golden dragon race. We can't let this person go so easily," Wang Changyuan said. "Indeed, I didn't see him." Qin Feiyang nodded. After pondering for a while, he suddenly frowned. "What's wrong?" Wang Changyuan looked at him suspiciously. "I suddenly remembered that when the golden spear appeared, the golden-clothed youth and the fire dragon should have been watching us. Could this golden spear be directly related to them?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "You mean that they were the ones who sent the golden spear to save the fire dragon?" Wang Changyuan asked. "That's what I think. In other words, that golden spear is most likely the golden-clothed youth's Dominator divine weapon." Qin Feiyang said. "Then, according to what you said, these princes and princesses all have a Dominator divine weapon?" Wang Changyuan frowned. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and shook his head. "We can't rule out this possibility. It seems that we can't be careless in the future." Wang Changyuan sighed. If it was just these princes and princesses and their followers, Qin Feiyang and the others wouldn't be too afraid. But if they all had Dominator divine weapons, it would be a different story. Qin Feiyang smiled suspiciously and said, "Actually, I don't care about these princes and princesses." "Then who do you care about?" Wang Changyuan and Pei Tianhong looked at him, puzzled. White-eyed Wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and pondered for a moment. "The Ice Dragon's son and daughter?" "That's right. Back then, both the Ice Dragon's son and the Ice Dragon's daughter made us suffer. Of course, compared to before, this Prince of the Dragons is more difficult to deal with than the princess. However, this prince's character is also above that of the princess." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Hearing you say that, I'm looking forward to meeting this pair of siblings." Pei Tianhong looked at the two people and the wolf and said, "As the ice dragon's son and daughter, their status is definitely above these princes and princesses. We probably won't be able to meet them until the end." Wang Changyuan smiled. "Let's take it slow. There's no rush." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and led the two people and the white-eyed wolf to a distant mountain peak to silently monitor the group. Time slowly passed. About an hour later, the divine message stone suddenly vibrated. "It should be senior brother. You guys keep an eye here first. I'll go to the black tortoise world." Qin Feiyang instructed Pei Tianhong and the white-eyed wolf before appearing above the devil's land and taking out the divine message stone. Buzz! At that moment, Madman's shadow appeared. There was also the deputy leader, the leader, and the Hall of Famers. "Greetings, Master. Greetings, Leader, Elder Qi." Qin Feiyang bowed to them one by one. "You still know that this old man is your master? When we separated, what did I tell you? Before going to the Demon land, tell us. In the end, you ran away without saying a word. In your eyes, do you still have me as your master?" The Vice Alliance master immediately scolded him to his face. "Ha!" Qin Feiyang laughed dryly. This feeling of being cared for was really good. "What are you laughing at? Looking at you makes me angry." The deputy leader glared fiercely at Qin Feiyang. "Then don't look at me. No one forced you." The Hall of Famers teased. "What does it have to do with you when we're talking? Do you want to interrupt?" The deputy leader glared at the Hall of Famers again with a displeased face. "What a temper! You can't even speak properly." "Feiyang, what did I tell you in the beginning? Before acknowledging a master, you have to look at his character first. Now you see, your cheap master's character is not good." The Hall of Famers looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Cheap master?" The deputy leader's mouth twitched. Why didn't he say that he picked up a master for free? The leader shook his head and smiled. Looking at the two of them, he said, Okay, let's get down to business." Hearing this, the deputy leader and the Hall of Famers' expressions immediately became heavy. They looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Is what little madman said true?" Qin Feiyang nodded. "I really didn't expect it. There is actually such a terrifying force hidden in our sky cloud realm." The deputy leader shook his head and sighed. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Little madman has already said your plan. As long as we can protect the rogue cultivator alliance, it's okay for us to suffer a little." "Then you agree to set a trap?" Qin Feiyang asked. The deputy leader nodded and said with a wry smile, "We can't think of a better way. You can go ahead and arrange it. We will fully cooperate." "Thank you, Master." Qin Feiyang was touched. This was the trust in him. No matter what he did, he would unconditionally support him. Chapter 34:28. The Alliance Master thought for a bit, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Madman also told us about your plan, but I personally prefer the second one. Why?" Qin Feiyang looked at the Alliance Master with a confused expression. "Because if we curry favor with the dragons, we can protect the rogue cultivator alliance and also get closer to the dragons and gain their trust. This way we can easily understand the dragons' background. And as long as we gain their trust, we will have a chance to infiltrate their inner circle. For example, if they have any plans against you, we can tell you in advance so you can prepare for it," the Alliance Master said. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. "At first, I also thought so, but now I don't dare to do it. Why?" The Alliance Master was confused. Qin Feiyang said, "Because now, if you really capture us and send us to them, I don't have much confidence in escaping from their hands." "You don't have confidence?" The Alliance Master was stunned. "That's right. I'm currently near the exit of the Demon territory. Currently, there are a total of 7 princes and princesses, and each of them has 2 super strong people by their side. And I've discussed with Pei Tianhong and the others, we suspect that each of these princes and princesses might have a ruler weapon. If that's the case, then once we start this plan, we'll be sending ourselves to our deaths. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. When he said this plan, he didn't think that each of these people would have a ruler weapon. Each of them. The Alliance Master and the others looked at each other, their eyes full of shock. Even Madman couldn't help but frown. If each of them has a ruler weapon, then if they really carry out the second plan, the possibility of escaping from the dragons is really low. Qin Feiyang pondered for a bit, then said, "How about this? We'll use the first plan, but we'll have to change it a little." "Speak," the Alliance Master and the others looked at Qin Feiyang. "Right now, we will ambush the dragon's people. At that time, we will pretend that we are no match for them. Then, we will go to the Western continent and ask for your help. Once we reach the Western continent, you will set a trap to kill us and steal our sovereign divine weapon. And the bigger the mess, the better. As for the future, I believe that the dragons will definitely go to the Western continent to look for you. If they ask you to do anything, you must obey them unconditionally. And because you plotted against us, I believe that you can slowly gain their trust. Of course, there's no need to force it. What I need is not for you to infiltrate the dragons and help us gather information, but for you to ensure your own safety. To put it simply, I don't want to see you put yourself in danger. Please believe in me, senior brother, old Pei, old Wang, and I can solve these problems." Qin Feiyang said. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, the Alliance Master and the other two were deeply moved. Even now, he was still thinking for them. This kid was their blessing. "All right, I'll listen to you." The vice leader nodded. "All right then. Senior brother, you can come over first." Qin Feiyang smiled and gave Madman a coordinate. "I'll be right there." Madman nodded and turned off the voice transmission stone. He looked at the Alliance Master and the other two and laughed. "This might be the last time we meet in public. Don't make it sound like we're parting forever." The Hall of Famers glared at him, then said apologetically, "It's also because I'm useless. I can't even protect my own disciple." "Don't say that. Humans aren't omnipotent. You don't have to worry too much. In short, as long as you guys are fine, we can stay outside and deal with the dragons with peace of mind. Right? There's also Zhuo Tiansheng, Lu Jingyuan, and Elder Yu. You must protect them. I don't want Xian to be sad." Madman said. "I will." The Hall of Famers nodded. "All right, I'm leaving." Madman glanced at the three of them, took a deep breath, opened a space-time teleportation channel, and walked in without looking back. "Sigh, may the heavens protect them and let them pass through this calamity." When the space-time teleportation channel disappeared, the Hall of Famers looked up at the sky and sighed. The Vice Alliance Master also silently prayed in his heart. "The heavens help the worthy. You guys don't have to worry." Just as Madman said, the fact that we, the elders, are safe is the greatest support we can give them. The Alliance Master patted the two of them on the shoulder and smiled. The Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers looked at each other, and a smile gradually appeared on their faces. The proudest thing he had ever done in his life was probably to have these two disciples. The Demon Land. Not long later, Madman came and immediately asked, "Where are they?" Wang Changyuan pointed at the hiding place of the 7 groups of people. "So many princes and princesses came out. They really think highly of us." Madman chuckled. Shua. Qin Feiyang also came out of the Black Tortoise world. "How long will the horsetail whisk take?" Madman asked. "I just asked 10 days. Qin Feiyang smiled. Madman nodded and said, "That's quite fast. Let's go to the Black Tortoise world first and comprehend the laws?" "Sure." Qin Feiyang nodded. During the few months in the Demon Land, whenever he was free, he would ask Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan about the mysteries of the power of laws. Therefore, he had a deep understanding of the war law, strength law, wind law, and even the light law. He was confident that he could comprehend the fourth profound of the four laws in a short period of time. As expected, after entering the black tortoise world, he comprehended the fourth profound of the four laws in less than 5,000 years. 5,000 years in the black tortoise world was only 5 days outside, and Madman was the same. The war law, darkness law, and light law had all stepped into the fourth profound. As for the white-eyed wolf, Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan, they naturally stayed outside to keep an eye on the princesses and princes. In the blink of an eye, black tortoise world, another 5,000 years. Qin Feiyang and Madman were both trying to comprehend the fifth profound of the war law, because the war law was relatively more useful to them right now. After all, after clashing with the dragons, bloody battles were unavoidable. With the war law, they would have a higher chance of success. And Qin Feiyang actually had another goal, which was to raise the level of the battle character art. Once the battle symbol art was upgraded to the supreme grade godly art level, coupled with the law of war, the flame of life, and the healing ability of the purple gold dragon blood, he would basically have an immortal body. And it wasn't just Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan who taught them these mysteries. Elder Hua and the others often explained them, and their comprehension abilities were outstanding. They all felt that the fifth profound was close at hand. However, even if the profound of the laws were close at hand, it couldn't be measured with normal eyes. Clang! On the 10th day, the horsetail whisk came out of the source land. Qin Feiyang and Madman both came out of seclusion and walked out of the ancient castle. Looking at the perfect horsetail whisk, a smile appeared on their faces. The source energy was indeed extraordinary. If they relied on the horsetail whisk to repair itself, it would take at least 100 to 200,000 years. But now, it had only been half a month since they left the Demon land. Half a month outside was 15,000 years in the black tortoise world. It was 10 to 20 times faster. Let's go. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The horsetail whisk turned into a stream of light and entered Qin Feiyang's qi. Immediately, the two appeared at the peak of the mountain. How is it? Madman looked at Pei Tianhong and the white-eyed wolf and asked, "There's no movement." "I didn't see any other princes or princesses coming out of the Demon land." The white-eyed wolf shook his head. Madman laughed. "They think that we are still in the Demon land, so those princes and princesses that haven't appeared should be looking for us inside." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Then, who is our target now?" the white-eyed wolf asked. "Target?" Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He glanced at the 7 princes and princesses and finally locked his eyes on the woman in the black dress. He smiled and said, "Of course it's her." "Hey!" The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Madman glanced at the white-eyed wolf and said suspiciously, "Brother Wolf, why do I feel that something is wrong with your eyes? Is there?" The white-eyed wolf was stunned. "There is." Madman nodded and looked at the woman in the black dress. "Look at the way you look at that woman. It seems a little different." "Ah." Qin Feiyang, Wang Changyuan, and Pei Tianhong looked at each other, and also looked at the white-eyed wolf. Could it be that this wolf cub was really interested in that woman? Cough, cough. The white-eyed wolf coughed dryly, as if he was hiding something. "Brother is just thinking that if I can take in a divine dragon as a pet, it should be very cool. Pet." Qin Feiyang and the other 3 looked at each other, extremely speechless. It was too extravagant to take a divine dragon as a pet. All right. Let's hurry up and take it down in one fell swoop," the white-eyed wolf urged, his eyes flashing fiercely. "Since you can't wait, then let's go." Qin Feiyang's eyes also flashed. With a thought, he activated the concealment art, and the group disappeared from the mountain peak. Chapter 30, 4:29. At the peak of the mountain, the woman in the black dress looked at the entrance of the Devil land. From the beginning to the end, she did not say a word, and there was no expression on her face. From afar, she looked like a human-shaped statue. The black-robed old man and the burly man behind her were also silent. However, there was a trace of fierce light in their eyes, as if there was a beast lurking in their bodies, giving people a sense of crisis. Suddenly, the woman in the black dress frowned slightly and turned her head to look behind her. "What's wrong?" The black-robed old man and the burly man looked at the woman in the black dress suspiciously. "Why do I feel like there's a gaze spying on us?" The woman in the black dress frowned. "Spying." The two were stunned and turned to look. There was nothing. "Is it an illusion?" The woman in the black dress murmured, her gaze sweeping the void, ready to release her divine sense to search. Boom! However, at the same time that she released her divine sense, there was a deafening explosion as a terrifying aura surged out. Following closely, just beside the three of them, a horsetail whisk appeared out of thin air, carrying a monstrous power, crazily attacking the three of them. The three of them suddenly changed color. It was actually a sovereign divine weapon. One had to know. The horsetail whisk was very close to the three of them. It was almost only 2 to 3 meters. At this distance, even those who mastered the instant time could not dodge it. Not to mention, it was such a sudden attack. "Your Highness, be careful." The black-robed old man and the burly man instinctively attacked, but they ignored their own strength. With their strength, they wanted to block the sovereign divine weapon. No doubt it was a fool's dream. With a scream, the burly man in black died on the spot, his body and soul destroyed. A super expert had fallen just like that. Was it worth it? Definitely not. Because if it was a head-on battle, even if it was Wang Changyuan now, it would be very difficult to kill him. But there was no other way. This was the power of a sovereign divine weapon. In front of a sovereign divine weapon, everything was like an ant. At the same time, the black-robed old man was also blasted out, his physical body shattered in the void, leaving only his divine soul. Even his divine soul had suffered a fatal injury, broken beyond recognition, although he had mastered 2 profound meanings, one of which was the strongest law. It was meaningless in the face of a sovereign divine weapon. There was nothing a sovereign weapon couldn't destroy, unless it was a dominator's weapon, a sovereign weapon. At this moment, the other princesses and princes who were hiding nearby finally reacted and looked over in surprise. That's it. It's Qin Feiyang's sovereign divine weapon. When enemies meet, their eyes blaze with hatred. As soon as the white-robed young man saw the horsetail whisk, he roared angrily and his killing intent surged out. Clang! The white dragon sword appeared at the first moment, and with a world-destroying sharpness, it charged towards the horsetail whisk. Qin Feiyang's sovereign weapon. Aren't they in the Devil land? When the others heard this, they were all bewildered. When did this group of people leave the Devil land? By the time they came back to their senses, the princes and princesses had already brought their followers and were charging over aggressively. Look at the horsetail whisk again. After killing the black-clothed man and severely injuring the black-clothed old man, he continued to attack the black-clothed woman. The woman in the black dress also appeared extremely flustered at this moment. She didn't expect Qin Feiyang's sovereign divine weapon to attack her from behind. The woman in the black dress was about to die. However, at this moment, a black light suddenly appeared around the woman in the black dress. Immediately, accompanied by a loud clang, a black bronze mirror flew out from her body and floated above her head. The sovereign divine weapon automatically protected its owner. This bronze mirror was about the size of an adult's palm. It was completely black, and there were 2 black dragons engraved on it. It looked like 2 dragons playing with a pearl. As the bronze mirror appeared, Rays of black light fell and instantly formed a barrier that enveloped the woman in the black dress. Boom! The horsetail whisk hit the barrier, but it didn't break it. This is a sovereign divine weapon. Seeing this scene, Qin Feiyang and the others' eyes trembled. This woman indeed had a sovereign divine weapon in her hands. Could it be that these princes and princesses all had a sovereign divine weapon? As the horsetail whisk and the bronze mirror collided, the invisible state of Qin Feiyang and the others was finally broken, and they immediately appeared from the void. When the woman in the black dress saw the bronze mirror appear, she also calmed down. Then, she looked at Qin Feiyang and the others with murderous intent in her eyes. Go! Qin Feiyang didn't hesitate and secretly shouted to Madman. Originally, he wanted to kidnap the woman in the black dress as a bargaining chip, but looking at the current situation, Qin Feiyang really gave up on this idea, because Bai Longjian had already attacked. Coupled with this ancient mirror, the horsetail whisk alone couldn't match up to them. Not to mention, the other princes and princesses also charged over. If they really had a sovereign divine weapon, then once they were surrounded, even if a god descended to the mortal world, he wouldn't be able to save them. Hearing Qin Feiyang's shout, Madman immediately opened a space-time transmission channel without any hesitation. Immediately afterward, For People and One Wolf ran into the space-time channel without looking back. The horsetail whisk released a monstrous power, sending the woman in the black dress and the bronze mirror flying. It also turned in the air and rushed into the space-time channel like a bolt of lightning. Don't run if you have the guts! Bai Longjian roared. Back in the inner area, he was tricked by Qin Feiyang and the others. So in his heart, he had already listed Qin Feiyang and the others as a target to kill. So now, seeing Qin Feiyang and the others enter the space-time channel, he was extremely anxious and angry. Are you waiting for death? Are you stupid, or are we stupid? Let's meet again if fate wills it. The white-eyed wolf's voice came from the space-time channel. Damn it! The woman in the black dress also had a frosty expression at this moment. Her thick black hair fluttered without wind, and her entire body was emitting a bone-piercing, cold current. We can't let them go. Suddenly, she stared at the bronze mirror and coldly shouted. The bronze mirror immediately shook in the void and shot out a black divine light, like a bolt of lightning, into the space-time channel. At the same time, the white dragon sword also slashed toward the space-time channel with thousands of sword chi. As long as this space-time channel was destroyed, Qin Feiyang and the others' teleportation could be interrupted. The two sovereign divine weapons attacked, and the space-time channel collapsed on the spot. However, Qin Feiyang and the others did not fall out of the void. Obviously, they had been teleported away. Bastard! The woman in the black dress clenched her hands and looked at the soul of the old man in black with a gloomy face. Before the official battle, one of her two followers was dead and the other was injured. For her, it was a great shame. The most hateful thing was, she was clearly waiting here for Qin Feiyang and the others, but in the end, she was schemed against by Qin Feiyang and the others and suffered a big setback. At the same time, the young man in white and the other princesses and princes also had ugly expressions. In the past, they were very confident that they could definitely wait for Qin Feiyang and catch Qin Feiyang and the others off guard. But in the end, they were caught off guard by Qin Feiyang and the others. As the princes and princesses of the dragons, how could they bear such a failure? They all felt that they were severely humiliated by Qin Feiyang and the others. Where did they come from? Why didn't we notice at all? The followers of the princes and princesses were also frowning. This was completely beyond their expectations. Wait, could it be, suddenly, an old woman's eyes trembled and her face was full of horror. What? Everyone looked at the old woman. If I'm not wrong, they should have taken a detour to the southern continent and then opened the space-time channel from the southern continent to return to the eastern continent. The old woman said in a deep voice. Hearing this, the group of people trembled. If that was the case, didn't it mean that Qin Feiyang and the others had already expected that they would be waiting here? Amazing! They beat us at our own game, circled back from the southern continent, and caught us off guard from behind. These people really can't be underestimated. An old man in green said. Not only was there a trace of shock on his old face, but there was also a trace of admiration. It was rare to see a young man with such sensitivity, judgment, and the courage to sneak attack them, and so good at scheming. Then what should we do next? A young man in red asked. Everyone was silent. A bell-like laughter rang out. The princes and princesses looked at a silver-haired woman and frowned slightly. The silver-haired woman looked at the white-clothed young man and the black-dressed woman. She giggled and said, First, Brother Xiaobai was fooled. Now, it's second sister who suffered a great loss. This Qin Feiyang is really interesting. Hearing this, the young man in white and the woman in black's face suddenly sank. Don't gloat, okay? Even if you can't help it, you should cover it up a little. After all, we're brothers and sisters. You have to save face. The young man in red laughed and glanced at the young man in white and the woman in black with a trace of ridicule in his eyes. Brother Shui, I'm not gloating. I'm just feeling sorry for them. The silver-haired woman sighed and looked harmless. Feeling sorry for them? The young man in red was slightly stunned. He looked at the silver-haired woman with a trace of disdain in his eyes. The silver-haired woman didn't care at all. She looked at the woman in black and smiled. We're going to enter the eastern continent and continue to hunt down Qin Feiyang and the others. But second sister, don't you want to go back to the dragon's nest first? Why should I go back to the dragon's nest? The woman in black was expressionless. Her black hair fluttered in the wind like an ice fairy. Of course, I'm going back to find help. Look, one of your followers is dead and the other is injured. In your current situation, if you enter the eastern continent, it won't be you who will hunt down Qin Feiyang and the others. It will be Qin Feiyang and the others who will hunt you down. The silver-haired woman laughed. You, the woman in black, clenched her fists. The anger on her face was obvious. The silver-haired woman looked at the woman in black and asked, Second sister, why are you angry? I'm doing this for your own good. No need. Mind your own business. The woman in black took a deep breath and said coldly. She then turned to the old man in black and asked, Can you do it? No problem. The old man in black nodded and smiled. Let's go. The woman in black waved her hand and the bronze mirror disappeared in her body. She then led the old man in black and disappeared into the mountains ahead without looking back. Second sister really likes to flaunt her superiority. The young man in red shook his head. You all know second elder sister's temper. You'd better shut up. The young man in white glanced at the silver-haired woman and the young man in red and left with the middle-aged couple. Can she hunt down Qin Feiyang just because she has a bad temper? The young man in red smiled disdainfully and left with the two old men in red. The other princes and princesses looked at each other, and one after another they disappeared into the vast mountains like lightning with their followers. Chapter 34:30. The two white-haired old women standing behind the silver-haired woman looked at the departing figures with helplessness. Then the two of them looked at the silver-haired woman and sighed. Princess, can't you be merciful? After all, we're all of the same race. Same race? The silver-haired woman let out a bell-like laugh, turned to look at the two of them and asked, Do you believe your own words? The two old women fell silent. Among us dragons, there has never been any feelings of kinship. Scheming, double-dealing, and harming each other. This is the true state of the dragons. I'm just more honest. I say whatever I think, unlike them, who keep everything in their hearts and wear a disguise all day long. The silver-haired woman's face was full of ridicule. All right, the two old women nodded. Although it was cruel, it was the truth. Kindness and kindness could not survive among the dragons. Let's go. Let's go and meet Qin Feiyang and his group. I want to see if they have 3 heads and 6 arms. The silver-haired woman giggled like a little elf. The 2 old women looked at each other, shook their heads helplessly, and left with the silver-haired woman. Back to Qin Feiyang and the others. Tianfeng City, outside the city above a mountain. For people and 1 wolf stood against the wind. The horsetail whisk floated in the air, casting down a divine light to protect them. If not for the protection of the horsetail whisk, the divine light released by the bronze mirror would have been enough to kill them, because that divine light was aimed at them. The bronze mirror, the white dragon sword, and the golden spear. These are the 3 rulers' divine weapons. Such a lineup is enough to compete with us. Just how terrifying is the foundation of the dragons? Wang Changyuan whispered with a solemn expression. Although they had killed the black-clothed man and severely injured the black-clothed old man, they were not happy at all. Their hearts felt heavy as if there was a huge rock pressing down on them. This was because they only had the horsetail whisk, the ancient castle, and the slaughter domain. In total, they only had 3 sovereign weapons. Qin Feiyang let out a long sigh. He looked at the madman's trio and the white-eyed wolf and sighed. It seems that we can only outsmart the dragons from now on and not fight them head-on. Yes, the 3 men and 1 wolf nodded. They were no match for the dragons in a head-on clash. Judging from the current situation, it was very likely that each of the princes and princesses had a ruler's weapon. If they were to fight them head-on, they would have no chance of winning. No, he could only be abused. Therefore, these princes and princesses had to be dealt with one by one. As long as these princes and princesses were not of one mind, they would have a chance. Pei Tianhong hesitated for a moment before looking at Qin Feiyang. Young master, I have a question that I have been pondering for a long time. I can't hold it in any longer. Can you answer it for me? What is it? Qin Feiyang looked at him in confusion. Pei Tianhong asked, why do the dragons keep saying that you have some purple gold dragon bloodline? That's right, purple gold dragon bloodline. Only the legendary purple gold divine dragon has it. You are a human. How can you have purple gold dragon bloodline? Besides, we have been together for so long and have seen your bloodline power. Not to mention purple gold dragon bloodline. You don't even have the aura of a divine dragon. Wang Changyuan also said, his face full of confusion. So it's this. Qin Feiyang suddenly smiled, but he didn't immediately answer. After pondering for a moment, he looked at the 2 and asked, then answer my question first. Is there a purple gold divine dragon in the sky cloud realm? There shouldn't be. The 2 looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. Really? Qin Feiyang asked. There are very few legends about the purple gold divine dragon, let alone others. In any case, we have never heard of a purple gold divine dragon. Of course, we don't know, but it doesn't mean others don't know. For example, this dragon, purple gold divine dragon, is also a divine dragon. I believe they must know something. Pei Tianhong said, I also know that dragons will definitely know something about the purple gold divine dragon. But with our current relationship with them, will they tell us? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. He was now wondering if the dragons of the sky cloud realm would be the purple gold divine dragon. However, from the attitude of the golden-clothed youth when he talked about the purple gold divine dragon, it seemed that he didn't like the purple gold divine dragon very much. This was a bit worth pondering. They were both dragons, but why would the golden-clothed youth as a golden dragon dislike the purple gold divine dragon so much? Young master, what about your purple gold dragon bloodline power? Pei Tianhong looked at Qin Feiyang expectantly. He couldn't help but be curious. Qin Feiyang looked at Pei Tianhong and then looked at Wang Changyuan. He smiled and said, "I do have the purple gold dragon bloodline power." What? The two were stunned. There really was such a thing? But why didn't they see it? Qin Feiyang said, "You didn't see it because my purple gold dragon bloodline was covered up." Covered up? The two were stunned. That's right. Not only me, my ancestor Qin Batian, and my younger brother in the lower realm also have the power to awaken the purple gold dragon bloodline. It's just that when I was in the ancient realm, in order to avoid the pursuit of the dragons, my ancestor Qin Batian spent a lot of energy and effort to develop a pill that can cover up the purple gold dragon bloodline. So now my and my ancestors' bloodline power looks no different from ordinary people. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. So that's how it is. The two suddenly understood, and a trace of admiration crept onto their faces. To be able to develop such a pill, this person called Qin Batian was really a shocking talent. Why did you awaken the purple gold dragon bloodline power? Wang Changyuan was suspicious. I don't know either. Although the bloodline of the Qin clan can be said to be flourishing, from ancient times until now, only the three of us have awakened the purple gold dragon blood. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Not necessarily. After all, we've been away from the great Qin Empire for so long. Who knows if someone else has awakened the purple gold dragon bloodline? White-eyed Wolf interrupted. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback, but he nodded and smiled. Of course. I also hope that more descendants of the Qin clan can awaken the purple gold dragon bloodline. Qin clan. Pei Tianhong muttered. Pei Tianhong pondered for a moment and said with surprise, "Young master, could it be that the bloodline of the Qin clan is the offspring left behind by the purple gold divine dragon and human?" Huh. Qin Feiyang was taken aback, because there's no other explanation. If you are the purple gold divine dragon, then there's no other reason. But the problem now is that you are all real humans. Humans have the purple gold dragon bloodline power. The only explanation is that you are the descendants of the purple gold divine dragon and human. Pei Tianhong analyzed. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, "Actually, I also thought of this before, but before I get confirmation, I can't directly come to a conclusion. Besides, my ancestor has already gone to look for the mystery of his origins. Where to find it?" Pei Tianhong was suspicious. "In the sky cloud realm," Qin Feiyang said. "Then I don't think there will be any results. After all, old Wang and I know more about the sky cloud realm than your ancestor. If even we don't know, it's even more impossible for your ancestor to find out." Pei Tianhong said, "Not necessarily. Just like the dragons, you have been in the sky cloud realm for so many years, and you didn't know about them, but now we found them." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Pei Tianhong was taken aback and nodded with a smile. "That's right. After all, you are not ordinary people. What's unusual? We all have one nose and two eyes. What's the difference? The fact that we were able to find the dragon race was all destined." Qin Feiyang smiled. "It's something that's destined," Pei Tianhong whispered. "That's right. Small Beast and Ice Dragon have been watching me. Fire Dragon has always wanted to kill me. Similarly, I also want to kill them. I am also looking for them. So in the end, no matter what, I will meet them. After meeting them, I will naturally find the dragons of the sky cloud realm. To be more specific, this is actually a kind of karma. Small Beast, Ice Dragon, Fire Dragon, and me, we are tied together by karma. Perhaps this is the so-called fate. No matter where I go, I can't escape from their entanglement." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Hearing this, Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan couldn't help but deeply agree. Karma, fate, these things, although ethereal and untouchable, they actually exist between every living being. Wait, karma, fate! Qin Feiyang seemed to have comprehended something as he lowered his head thoughtfully. Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan, Frenzy, and White-Eyed Wolf all looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. What's going on? Why did he suddenly become silent? The White-Eyed Wolf raised his paw and waved it in front of Qin Feiyang. He found that Qin Feiyang didn't react at all. Looking at Qin Feiyang's eyes, there seemed to be mysterious runes flashing in his eyes. Don't touch him. Pei Tianhong seemed to have thought of something as he quickly pulled the White-Eyed Wolf and transmitted his voice. What's wrong? The White-Eyed Wolf was shocked. Pei Tianhong thought to himself, he should have entered some kind of epiphany state. He was afraid of disturbing Qin Feiyang. Epiphany? The White-Eyed Wolf and Frenzy froze for a moment before their faces were filled with envy and jealousy. This guy, he actually entered an epiphany state again. Thinking about other people's lives, it was rare for them to have an epiphany. But this guy, entering an epiphany for no reason, how could it be so easy? This bastard, he should be the chosen one, right? He had invincible luck. Otherwise, how could it be so easy? It really made one jealous. Protect the young master. Don't be disturbed at this time. Pei Tianhong looked at Wang Changyuan. Understood. Wang Changyuan nodded. Immediately, the two of them rose into the air and stood in the air, scanning the surrounding mountains and rivers with vigilance. The horsetail whisk was still floating above Qin Feiyang's head. Strands of divine light descended, silently protecting Qin Feiyang. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.